Yeah, that's slacker Jim. He's taking another night off. I don't know what we're going to do. I think I'll just whine. Thank you, Gold Panner. Oh, oh, dearie. Oh, well, as you can see, it's been a week in the lab because that's basically all we can't do anymore. Basically, for months, it's going to be just too cold to do anything except lab work and research and a few other little things, maintenance items, that sort of thing. Um, yeah, right now it's 11 degrees Fahrenheit. Hey, Shaggy. And so we've been fairly busy both getting the lab set up and um, getting a number of experiments running um, because of the time it takes to perform various operations. The uh, actual elapsed time can be fairly long on various different things. And so we're running them in parallel. And we have a couple of basic things. Number one, we have this alternative resin called the Pure Gold 5011 that it's loaded to some extent. We don't have a really, hey, Sherry, how's it going? We don't have a really good handle on an independent handle on how well it's loaded. Eva's assay technique, which works pretty good on the max water, shows about 1.5%, which is pretty low compared to the max water, but we have no significant evidence that it's, um, oh, what do you call it, fully loaded at all. So there may be a lot more room to do it. Hey, Forrest.
Hi, Forrest.
And everything go okay at the well? Eva's, um, osteoporosis is something that they don't have a magic bullet for at this point. So the doctor here is going to check with the cancer doctor in Missoula and say, what do you think of these couple options here? And then get his feedback and go from there. So, um, well, Sherry, a couple weeks ago, well, what was it when you broke that vertebrae in your sleep?
Yeah, like 3 weeks
That was
ago, I
about three
broke a
weeks.
vertebrae in my sleep,
Yeah.
and 2 weeks
She
ago, I
woke
broke
up in
a
the
tendon.
morning and her back was hurting for no apparent reason.
That was
It
like a month ago.
it didn't get better. It started to get a little bit worse. So we went into the hey, Mr. Lodak, went into the doctor and they took an X-ray and said, well, you got a vertebrae that's got a compression fracture in it. Now, I mean, it started hurting when she was sleeping, so we have no idea what caused it. Um, Whatever it wasn't real serious. So they gave her a test and determined that she does have osteoporosis. Seemed to me like the doctor didn't seem horribly concerned about your back, but your hip was getting a little
Yeah,
bit questionable.
my
Your
hip is
pelvis,
worse than my
yeah,
back.
yeah. The pelvis is worse than the backbone. Okay, and anyhow, Sherry, about I don't know, we could go Saturday. Uh, we were out at the mill trying to get everything basically dealt with because on Sunday it was going to get really cold. Unfortunately, um, yeah, her surgeon was pretty good for us, um, but the um, the weather was just horrible that Saturday, Sherry. I mean, the wind was well, the wind forecast was 25 to 30 mile an hour, gusting to 50, with isolated gusts of up to 80. So, say we had to get tanks emptied. We had to get the agitation tank laid down. We had to get all the liquid chemicals out of the lab and move them to a warm place, all the resin out of the lab and move to a warm place. So I said we had a lot of stuff to do. And while we were, I was moving stuff out of the lab, I had the door propped open. The wind literally kind of half ripped the door and got it. I had a bucket of rocks in front of it and kind of broke the door and threw it around that, ripped one of the hinges loose, and I couldn't get it to prop up and stay out of my way. So I got Eva and said, "Here, hold this door open for me so I can make a half a dozen trips um, to the camper, with all this stuff." And while she was sitting there holding the door, the wind, I'm just estimating this, but went from like 30 miles an hour, roughly 25, 30, straight line, steady, fairly wind. Their gust came by that was probably up about 50 miles an hour. Did the calculations, and she was probably holding against about 50 pounds, which sounds about right. And then when that gust hit, it was about 200 pounds of pressure. She says it lifted her feet right off the ground. I was right there at the time, and it looked like somebody just kind of tackled the door from the other side, but it swung around and threw her into the building onto the concrete floor. So she landed basically on her tailbone, and she was a hurting girl. She was making inarticulate noises of unpleasantness, and I asked her, "You think I need to call an ambulance?" And she, without hesitation, said, "I think you better." So got an ambulance on the way, covered her with some comforters, put a pillow under her head, stuck a blow dryer in it, because you have to understand this was like 30-degree temperatures too. I mean, this was not a warm day. This was a cold day to begin with. So she's laying just inside of a doorway with the door ripped off, with this wind blowing right on her on concrete that was approximately freezing. I mean, the temperature of that concrete was like she was laying on an ice rink, basically. So, I mean, I had to keep her warm because it's going to take a while for the, ambulance to show up. Eventually, the ambulance got there, and they got her loaded up and taken off. I was able to get everything else secured as much as necessary. There were some things I came back the next day just to check on and kind of tidy up a little bit, but I did it, got everything that was necessary. By the time they got her packaged up, loaded up, and drugged up to take her back, I'd gotten all that done. So I was following the ambulance back. Um, I thought she probably broken her pelvis because where she was saying the pain was. And they did an x-ray. The pelvis was okay, but she had damaged another two vertebrae, not in a critical manner. Okay, it's not like the spinal cord was in danger, but yeah. So I say she's healing up okay, but part of her problem is she's lost some bone density over the years, and we're going to see what we can do to improve that so she's a little more resilient. But so she's doing better. Um, she's not normally showing much in the way of discomfort anymore for quite a while. You noticed in that video I posted today, where at the very beginning there, I said, I think it's all, you got everything you need done. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go sit down. It's like, yeah, I think you better. That's because at that time she was hurting pretty badly. Um, her main issue seems to be the soft tissue around that area, been bruised, and she gets these bad muscle spasms when she tries to stand up or do something like this for very long. And they luckily, if you can call it that way, it's winter, so we got plenty of time. And well, that would be kind of cool, Sherry, but we only got one bed. It'd get a little crowded. And Sherry said, I want to come up and take care of her till she heals up. I suppose I could sleep on the floor. But anyhow, so I say she's doing okay. Gabapentin,
Can't take it.
Eva says she can't take that.
It doesn't work for me.
It doesn't work
gives
for her,
me
she says.
bad side effects.
Yeah, it gives her some bad side effect. Thank you, Tom. And whatever, Sherry, I don't know if your vehicle is good enough or so. Don't take any risks. It's under control, but we do appreciate it. Anyhow, she's using cyclobenzaprine now. They tried
Methocarbamol.
Methocarbamol, and that didn't work quite as well as cyclobenzaprine did. So she's going back to the cyclobenzaprine, but she's healing up. It's under control at this point. It was very scary for both of us. So she was hurt, but luckily it's not what you would call serious injury, although it's significant issue. So she's we got things set up out there at Lauren's where she's got a chair, nice comfortable chair by the furnace area with a donut pillow there, and so she can stay fairly comfortable. If you guys watched that video, you know she was doing a little dancing and stuff. That was actually last night that happened there. And it was kind of funny because when I uploaded that video, now that video, different parts were taken over a week or so, okay? But this was the first time that Lauren had music on. Quite often he's got the news or this or that or the other on. He had music on. It was good music, and so everyone was having a good time. And when I uploaded the video, YouTube said, we have identified possible copyright violations, you know? And I'm like, what? What do you mean? So I kind of go through the cues and the details, and it was a couple of the music in the background was the issue. But it said, my video might not be visible in Belarus and Russia. And that was it. And it's like, okay, I can live with that. So whatever. Now we have a special thing. Somebody called me today with some questions, and I'm going to come up with that shortly. Let me get a few of the other things out of the way. Right now, we're running a bunch of tests, essentially determining how much gold is in the pure gold resin and whether it ashes well. We're also trying some elution tests where we're putting the max water resin in various solutions to try and pull stuff out of it and see if we can pull the gold. And if not, can we pull the other stuff out of it that causes the high losses in the drying and ashing stages? And all this requires a fair amount of time. Things like drying and eluting, and so that takes a lot of time to do that, but not a whole lot of effort. So we got plenty to keep us busy for the near-term future doing that. But in terms of actual effort expended, only 2 to 4 hours a day. And Lauren has got all his ice fishing gear ready to go. So maybe in the next week or so, I can go ice fishing and catch Eva some fresh fish, which he really enjoys. I had a friend today, and I happen to know that they're watching the video right now. That's right. You betcha, Jason. Ice fishing. But he had a question. Now, he lives in Nevada. He owns some property. He has the mineral rights to that property. There's a big mine roughly 5 miles away. And their exploration department wanted to punch an exploration hole on his property, about 600 feet deep. He didn't know what the diameter was. I presume a 600-foot deep hole is going to be reverse circulation, so probably about 6-inch diameter hole. And the advice that I gave him was, I asked, are they going to give you the results from the hole? Yes. Okay. He was concerned about them cleaning up the tracks and trails and damage they might do to the surface to get the hole in, etc. And I said, well, that certainly, you're not going to let them do it without a contract. It might be a fairly short one, but a short contract. And one of the things is, of course, they either need to clean up their mess or leave a deposit before they start the hole so you can clean up the mess. Okay. And that way there's, nothing there. We also thought up, since he says that way I'll have a well, I thought, well, you might get them to leave a casing in there too, because they're going to have to case the hole in order to get a clean sample. And it might not be that hard to just persuade him to just leave the casing there. And then he'd have a cased well just sitting there. And then if they find anything, they can start negotiating for, whatever they want to negotiate. But to make sure that there's no definitive contingency in that initial contract that says, if we find something, we get to buy it from you, for nothing like that. It's like, no, you got to give me the results, then we can start talking about anything further. So the idea was, let them drill the hole, give you the results, clean up the mess, see if they can leave a casing in it. Aside from that, man, they find anything, they can start negotiating from there. So if anyone has any other ideas, like Chris or whatever, on anything that we hadn't thought of, I'd appreciate it. I don't think Rock Butcher's here yet. I haven't seen him yet. He's highly experienced in mineral exploration, so I'm sure he knows that. And yeah, Jason, I just don't know how you do it with all that ice water, man. Holy crap. You got the toughest hands I know of, man. But so anyhow, we got that situation there. If anyone thinks of anything on that, it would be helpful. We're still looking for a place for the cats down in Tucson. If anyone has any ideas, that would be great. And hello, Gold Addicts. Exactly, Sherry. They don't punch 6-inch holes 600 feet just for the practice. They got a reason. There may be something there. It may be a low probability, but if you get all the results, what the heck, you'll find out as much as not as much as they do, but close. And so I say it's worth a shot, as long as, again, you just have certain conditions. They handle all the permits, all this, all that. It doesn't cost you anything. They clean up their mess, give you the results. So that'd be cool. I mean, that's, I don't know, to actually mobilize the rig and punch a 600-foot hole, you're probably talking $10,000, $20,000. Oh, if they find anything, I say there's a big mine about 5 miles away, Jim, and these are kind of like out drillings. little kind of wildcatting out in his area to see if they find anything. So yeah, if they hit anything, then things get a lot more complicated over time. That's when you start talking leases and this and that and the other, leases with contingencies, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see. I just got an email back about an hour ago from the salesperson of the Purolite people that handle that Pure Gold 5011 resin, and he's going to double check and see if they have any elution instructions. But it's his understanding that they just basically roast it. They ash it and then flux it and smelt it. And we'll see what they come up with, Jim. I wouldn't, but who knows? As I say, sometimes people do stupid things, but if it works in your advantage, what the heck? See what the contract says when they, hand him a piece of paper to look at. Another thing is, don't sign the paper immediately. Get a copy, have it looked over by people who know what they're looking at, and then either sign it or ask for modifications. But don't just, well, here's the contract we were talking about. Okay, that's not the way you do it, because it's easy for you and if you're just doing it right then, you may miss something that you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat going, oh crap, I've already signed it. Yep, I agree, Chris. But anyhow, so that's kind of what we're looking at here. The resin that you saw in the video posted today that was roasting was max water resin that had been eluted, had been exposed to solutions to remove material. And then we'll see what's left. That particular one was the one where we just did the third elution process to it, which was supposed to remove gold, but that solution didn't seem to have a lot of gold in it. So we're assuming it really wasn't that successful at getting the gold. However, if it removes things which are causing problems during the ashing process, then it can be a very useful step anyway. So say all these things require kind of multiple checks in various places. So it's going to keep Eva very busy for the next couple of weeks, pinning down all this information. Meanwhile, I'm the guy that's basically doing the elution setups and stuff and etc. She's handling the furnace, the records, and a few other little things. Not that she couldn't do the elution stuff, but I'm just kind of out there since I don't have a mill to actually, process or move solution or whatever.
Buttons. Granted, you're not cleaning buttons very well, but you'll get better.
And I say we shall see. When you see the piece of paper and get it looked at, you'll see it may have a mining agreement kind of integrated into it that they just didn't mention a whole lot. If it's not horribly unreasonable, that's not a huge problem. If they're getting the cart ahead of the horse, so to speak, then you might go, whoa, Nilly. Let's back up here a little bit and what's all this here? I mean, be interesting to see what happens. And yeah, Forrest, the people you talk to may not be the people in the office who fill out the paperwork either. Hard to tell. But I say time will tell. You just play it carefully. So that's where we're at right now. Yes, it may take months to get it to the point where anything's ready to be signed forest, you know. Um, but Chris and Rock Butcher, they've got some pretty good smarts here, and everyone will be happy to put our little thinking caps on as this process goes on and see where it gets in the long run here. But we'll be happy to help out. That's what we like to do here. No, Chris. I say, as Forrest said, they may just be throwing out a spitball and saying, "Hey, is this a possibility?" And I think Forrest said that a lot of the other private landowners around there didn't even want to discuss it. It's like, no, I'm not letting you drill on my property. Get off my property, sort of thing. So it's hard to tell what's going on, but since there's nothing in writing yet, there's no agreements right now. There's just ideas floating around. So say we shall see. I would agree that it would be highly unusual for them to have no contingencies. Okay, that's a good point, Chris. You might, if you get along well with your neighbors, Forrest. I don't know. This is Forrest we're talking about here. And see what was said to them, if anything, whether they even give them a chance to talk, just to get an idea what's going back and forth here, and are these people saying different things to different people, which was a huge red flag right there. But anyhow, so that's the situation. That's about all the news right now. I don't have any results right now that really tell me much of anything. We should be getting those like tomorrow. It's frustrating. I wanted to get it before we did the video, but we just didn't have it done. And I mean, these things take time. We've got that ash resin. I think.
Well, I have a few things I can say about the pure gold.
Okay, go ahead. You want to get your lab coat on?
Yeah.
Lars isn't here yet, but what the heck? Yeah, they're going to be checking all that stuff for us. Mistakes get very expensive and rarely get repeated too often in the mining business. Okay, here's our lab tech here. The lovely Miss Eva.
So, I've been playing with the pure gold this week. I've done 2 standard assays on it, and then I dried some and ashed it. I will say I prefer working with this stuff over the max water. Because first of all, it doesn't stink like fish.
Yeah.
Terribly while you're working with it. There's almost no amine smell. There's plenty of amine smell in the bag when it's wet, but when it's dry and when you're ashing it and when you're smelting it, it doesn't smell. It seems to have a higher temperature for when it first bursts into flame in the furnace. It's the max water starts bursting into flame and smoking like crazy at about 500 degrees Fahrenheit. The pure gold starts being on fire but not belching black smoke at about 700 degrees Fahrenheit. The ashed beads look significantly different from the max water. When you get to max water to the point where it's 10% or so of the original volume. The beads,
Volume or weight?
weight, excuse me.
Okay.
The beads look covered with fine lines and they have a light metallic sheen. The pure gold, on the other hand, the beads were not covered with fine lines. They didn't look like they were about to break out, and they were a glossy black pearl color that was just totally freaking awesome. But there were also little tiny beads of gold metal in there too, which was also quite interesting. I've already noticed that the crucibles come out significantly cleaner with this stuff. It's a lot easier when it gets to the final stage where the beads are breaking up and making little kind of poofs of flame in your smelt. It coalesces together with the lead button a lot better. And that final breakdown stage happens a lot faster. So I'm liking the mechanics of this stuff. Where we are now in terms of the testing is I have a set of dried debris that I'm going to be turning into a bead to put with the other two tomorrow, and I'm keeping fingers crossed that that ash bead comes out the same size or dang close to it, because if it does, that means we didn't lose anything. And I'm very hopeful about the other elution test we did. Hold on a minute. I'm very hopeful about the other elution test we did because it was only stage 3 of the process that Tricky sent me, but it appeared to be far more stable than just starting with dried beads and smelting them. And if the ash on that comes out close to the other 2 beads I got on it, I'm going to be really, really happy, because that may mean that we found a way to use up the rest of the max water we have. And if the pure gold tests out well in terms of loading, then we won't end up with 700 pounds of beads around we can't use, which will be cool. Hey, Cherokee.
It's only about 100, I think. Now, here's one thing I was thinking, little one.
Yeah.
You say you didn't notice that amine fishy smell.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the loading of the Pura Gold was 1.5%.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you
So
measured.
it was half our normal load, or thereabouts.
Yeah, or even lower. Some of the stuff's been running up over 4%.
Yeah.
But when I did my calculations, I just did some rough calculations. I'm just guessing at the solution concentrations and stuff. It could have been up to about 3%. I wouldn't have, with those calculations, I would have been shocked if it wasn't, but don't know what the solution concentration. It could have been, that should be just fine. But what I'm thinking might be happening is the Pura Gold is capturing some of the complexes, that because we may have multiple complexes from that Eco Goldex gold complex, and the Pura Gold may be picking up some of them, but not all of them.
Yeah.
And that might be why you notice this difference. It certainly is a different color that it's changing to.
Absolutely.
We watched
different sizes. The pure gold, the beads are only 3 different sizes. The max water, we've got 5 different sizes and usually 4 different colors.
Well, the other thing I noticed was when Lauren and I were watching videos from Eco Goldex,
yeah,
and they were doing electronics,
yeah,
recycling and stuff. The solution they were showing was like a fairly ruby red sort of color,
yep.
like
it was absolutely the color of our beads.
The max water beads.
The max water beads, not the pure gold.
The pure gold, they turn more yellow. Now, our solution is generally more in the yellow range, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
The solution with this stuff has never turned red. The solution with this stuff stays in the yellow to orange gradient, which is quite interesting to me. I also noticed there's a whole lot of precipitates in these elutions that he just did that I can't wait to get dried and figure out what the heck they are.
Okay, Ofangi. Not at certain stages. When we are leaching the ore
He's
Yep.
going to use the whiteboard.
Yep.
And I'm going to move over so you can see the whiteboard.
Okay. So here's our ore, and we put solution on it, and it comes running out here. This is a lot of solution. So it's high volume. Yeah. Low grade. Now, in order to use zinc efficiently, the first thing you have to do to this solution here is prevent it from redissolving the gold. When you're using cyanide, that's easy to do. All you have to do is take the oxygen out of the solution. That's easy to do and easy to replace. In this case, you actually have to neutralize the Eco-Goldex, which means you're adding a lot of chemicals. Then you could precipitate it, but you now have a lot of solution that's got even more chemicals in it, so it makes it very, very hard to recycle. If, on the other hand, we take this and run it through the resin, we can take this solution and run it right back through there. Just add a little bit of chemicals to it and reuse it. And then from here, we process this. Now, if we could get a solution that would get the gold back out of the resin, let's say we used 10 times the solution as we used the resin. The resin right now is running like 20,000 parts per million. So even at that, we'd be going 1,000 parts per million here. Whereas this is only running about 10 parts per million. Okay? So this 100-fold increase in concentration means that, yeah, here you could use a zinc cementation method. That wouldn't be a problem. So far, we haven't found anything that gets it efficiently out of the resin yet. So that's why we're not too worried about it. We tried putting a little zinc in a cartridge and just trying it, see what happens. It didn't seem to work. Okay? The solution into that cartridge and the solution going out of that cartridge. Did we actually see a drop there? I thought we saw a little drop, about
We
1
saw a
part per
drop.
million.
Yeah.
About 1 part per million drop. But when we assayed the gold, the zinc, when we smelted it down, we didn't really find anything of any consequence. Little teeny, almost microscopic bead. So zinc cementation for our process doesn't seem to be economically the best way to go. That's why we're working so hard on trying to get the gold back out of the resin. The resin grabs it real well.
And one thing I'm going to be working on in bottle roll test this winter, and I already told him whether he agrees with me or not is another issue. One thing I want to work on is I want to determine what the actual loading factor is on max water versus pure gold. Because so far, due to the grade of our ore, we haven't loaded anything past 10% loading factor. What I would like to do is find out how much it can actually hold. Because one thing I've been considering that he's not really is, say we run into a fairly large area of fairly low grade ore. If we can get the Eco-Goldex and our pregnant solution up to 40 parts per million or 50 parts per million by not taking the gold out in the middle, just rerunning the pregnant solution 2 or 3 times till it gets very pregnant, and then shoving it all through the resin, then we'd end up with a very highly loaded resin. And I think that part of our problem with electrolysis so far, and maybe even with elution, is there may not be enough concentration in there.
I think 1, 2, 3%. Hey, Walt, how's it going?
Hi, Walt.
How
you doing?
Those are some pretty good numbers on that email. Quite interesting. I just don't know if I can hike 3.5 miles depending on the terrain. I mean, I'm an old geezer here. I'm pretty tough for an old geezer, but I'm still an old geezer. So we'll have to talk about that.
But I do want to find out whether having higher loaded resin might help me in a few other ways.
Well,
So
that's a good thing. Another possibility too is the resin is picking up more than gold.
Yeah.
That's for sure. It has a lot of copper in it, for example, and a lot of iron.
Yeah.
So if we can take those out of the resin without desensitizing the resin, then maybe we can put it back into circuit and get more gold on it before we process it.
And the other thing I'm looking at is if the gold, it already looks like the gold is preferentially kicking off silver. So my thought is if more gold goes in there, it may preferentially kick off the copper and the other stuff that's getting stuck in the resin. So the resin product I end up working with doesn't have this extraneous stuff in it that may be causing a problem. And I think the iron may be the extraneous stuff causing the problem here. Not sure yet.
Okay, Forrest, your question. How much does it cost to process a ton of dirt? Well, there's a number of different factors
I'll let
involved,
him take over again.
and they're all independent of each other. Now, in our case, we're mining hard rock. So we have a mining cost. Let's get a, what the heck happened to the,
So the optimal question here is which dirt?
So you have your mountain here. This is rock. So you got mining cost. Then you have a transportation cost. Then you have a crushing cost. Then you have a leaching cost. And the final refining. So I'm going to kind of take them separate. Right now, these mining costs are way too high for what we're doing. The mining is difficult. It's not very fast. So these are too high under current conditions for the grade of rock we're getting and the difficulty mining. Transportation cost. Well, driving it 60 miles, about 1 ton, 60 miles, costs about that much in gasoline, the $60. So $1 per ton in gas. Crushing cost, haven't done a detailed analysis, but fuel-wise, we're maybe a couple dollars a ton, wear and tear and stuff like this. This is going to be less than $10 a ton. Okay. Leaching cost, I think that's what you were basically talking about. The chemicals cost $5 per pound of Eco Goldex, and lime is like 10 cents a pound. And how much Eco Goldex for a batch were we using, little one? All total.
All total 6 to 7 cups.
6 to 7 cups.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember what the weight was per cup?
1.5 cups brings us up to 1.5 per ton.
No. Pounds. If I have a cup of Eco Goldex, how much does it weigh?
I think 3.5 cups is a kilo. I'm not sure.
3.5 cups per kilo?
Actually, I think we're using about a kilo right now.
Okay, so we're looking at about $10 a pound. $10 of chemical per ton. And then refining cost Getting it into the resin is real cheap. Getting it out of the resin currently is way too high. That's why we're looking at easier ways of doing it. We are probably looking in the refining cost. Let's suppose we can ash the resin, flux the resin, smelt the resin directly down. Then we were probably the resin itself. The resin is it was $13 a pound, and 1 pound of resin. Been holding
454 grams.
Shush. 13 times 1 pound times 12 times 0.03. Okay, it'll hold about 1/3 of an ounce. So that's about $600 roughly. So $13 in resin will hold $600 in gold. And then it's how you get the gold out. Shouldn't be terribly expensive once we figure out a good way. So depending upon what you're doing in terms of these steps here, will tell you basically how much your total cost is. But this part here should be under $20 a ton. Okay. $5 a mile. $60. Yeah, exactly. $60 per ton in gas. Absolutely. You're correct, everybody. Sounds good, Walt. The resin itself, the max water, we've measured up to 4.5% gold. That number there is 3% gold. So let's say that gives you an idea, just ballpark numbers. Then you actually have to test and see what your particular ore uses, how much crushing, this, that, and the other. This works on really fine gold for us, not like the soils you've got. That gold is probably way too coarse for this, and therefore you would need a gravity separation, which is cheaper than this. Okay, when you're talking hard rock, that's what we're doing. If you were able to heap leach it, then that crushing cost is going to go way down because we're pulverizing it. We're grinding it to 100% passing 20 mesh. If you were heap leaching, you'd probably only be crushing it to like 1/2 inch, which is a much cheaper process. So I say that's kind of the numbers. Our problem right now with Montana B is that first one. The mining cost is way too high. We're out there for like 3.5 days to get 1 ton of ore. When you put the labor cost in there, that adds up to a tidy chunk of change. If we had a higher grade ore, that wouldn't be a problem. But so far, the actual grade we're getting out is disappointingly low compared to what we were hoping to get. The initial chip samples indicated 2 to 3 times, well, actually 2 to 4 times what we have recovered to date. So that obviously makes a huge difference in your profit and loss calculations. I don't know if Montana B is going to be profitable. If it isn't, we'll have to look for something else. In the meantime, we will have figured out all this other stuff and we're ready to apply it to something else. So if nothing else, we're creating tools and systems to deal with these things. And so when we find something else, we'll be in good shape. that's basically how that all works out. The what do you call it? The whole methodology is just working fine, with the exception of the mining, and that has a lot to do with ore grade. We're not that much behind what I thought the production would be, but with that low uh, ore grade, there's just no way to make that up without. I mean, on a small ore body. If you had a mountain, oh yeah, if that whole mountain was, the grade that we're getting right now, oh yeah, yeah, that would be good, real good. But it's that wide. That's a problem. Um, so I say that's kind of where we're at right now. Next spring, we'll be doing, I presume, more work at Montana B to get ore to leach and continue some of these experiments here. We're also going to be spending a fair amount of time up on the top of the mountain area up there that we were at, a month ago, staking that claim to try and locate. In that mountain, there is a mineralized zone 500 feet below where we're at. We know it's there. We're not sure what the dip is. So we got some work to figure all that out. And then if we can find that, see what the grade is on surface, is that something we can mine and haul off and process? Because we do have patented claims up on top there. There's no reason theoretically we couldn't build a leach pad up on top. It's not going to be useful for as much of the year as it would down a couple thousand feet lower, but the transportation cost is pretty minimal. Geophysics time, possibility, Chris. Dowsing is a possibility. I've got Zeoxio over in Butte on a as time permits basis, going to be researching it using various. They're 500 feet down and blocked in right now, Chris, and I don't know how much opening. That's not a bad idea in general. There's a mine about a half a mile away that has plenty of openings. Good, Tricky. Try really hard to keep it that way. The little ones really need you. Oh. If it's on the patented claims, which we believe the outcrop probably would be, or at least a certain section of it, we would probably trench initially to see what we can intercept. Trenching across the structure gives you a lot of information. Drilling, it's a much smaller hole and everything's getting jumbled up as it comes up, unless you drill a core drill, which gives you something that big. And so that, again, depending on the circumstances, can be of more or less usefulness. In this particular situation, it's a lot cheaper to go up there with an excavator and run cross trenches on the private ground. And then if we find it, then we can start kind of uncovering and figuring out exactly where it is and run multiple cross trenches and sample and blah, blah, blah. We shall see. We ought to have some good videos next season. Once we get a good process figured out for the max water resin, then we're going to spend a fair amount of time this winter processing the resin that we have. We should have over 2 ounces of gold in resin. I can't tell you how much, but over 2. And to do that, we're probably going to have to build a bigger furnace, which, oh, shucks. What a shame. Um, because we're just going to have to do it in bigger batches. Right now, the biggest batch Eva can run is 12.5 grams of dry resin, which is 25 grams of wet resin, one single cartridge. But that cartridge has 330 grams. So 330 divide by 25. So it would take 13 smelts just to deal with one cartridge. And that's just not going to work. We need to be able to do it much more at a time. And so that's, once we figure out what to do, then we need to get on it and actually try and get all that resin processed by springtime. By the way, Chris, Eva had a question. I think it's an excellent question. Could we use that lead foil we have as a cathode, assuming we're eluting and electroplating, use the lead foil as a cathode, plate the gold onto the cathode, and then just fold it up and put it in a cupel? I'm like, seems like it worked to me. We also have some thin copper sheet that I think would work well, but in that case, you'd put it in nitric acid instead of cupel it. As far as I know, there's nothing wrong. That's the nice thing about this particular leaching stuff. It's not that terribly hazardous for us. Some of the things we're using in the final processing stuff can be fairly hazardous. But, muriatic acid, battery acid, nitric acid, which is about the same strength, lye, those are the, really dangerous chemicals. We're not using much in the way of toxics, although we do have heavy metals we're dealing with. So you have to be careful how you deal with that, like on the furnacing. When you're cupelling and things like that, you're creating some lead fumes. You can see on that video I posted today, that cupel with the molten lead in it, you can see the fumes. And okay, Chris says we can probably use it for the anode also, but we'd have to form lead oxide in a carbonate cell before running the electrowinning. In other words, we could take one and condition it to where it's both inert and conductive. Okay. The lead oxide would be inert, but also conductive. Okay. So I say that's the kind of hazards we're looking at for us. None of them are really horrible. They're easily managed. But I say it's not going to do us any good until we figure out how to get it out of the resin efficiently, or change resin where we wind up with one that we can get it out efficiently. No, yeah, we've got lead foil. We might have to clean it a little bit. Okay, Tricky, what we did, you gave us 3 stages. We started with 150 grams of resin. Okay. We did the sulfuric acid for the first stage, screened, rinsed, and took a sample of that. What was that? 25 grams wet, little one?
Yeah.
Okay. For her to dry and smelt, just to see how much gold is in the resin there. And then, by the way, this resin has already been previously assayed, so we have a good idea of what's in the resin. Then that wet resin that wasn't taken out for sampling is put in the second elution solution, the hydrochloric acid salt solution, and it sat there for a couple of days on the stir. And we did the same thing: drained it, rinsed it, took out a 25-gram sample, then moved the remaining 100 grams to the final elution solution. And once it had been there for a couple of days, and we choose these things, it's like, when did we get back to Lawrence? It's about I don't know, 12, 15-mile drive to his house. Not horribly far, but I mean, in my truck, it costs some money to go back and forth. So we don't just do it casually, but we do it frequently. And then that resin was split, and we've got, I think, 50 grams still wet, 50 grams that was dried. It was split. One of them was just assayed the normal way. The other one was ashed. That's that stuff that you saw in the video today that was being ashed. That was that resin. It's had all 3 elutions done to it. And we'll see how the amount of gold in that sample that's been ashed matches the same size sample that wasn't ashed, and how it matches the original resin from which it was eluted. So we basically got everything. We've still retained all the solutions and all the precipitates. They're all sitting there. Once we get some numbers back, then we'll decide what to do with them, whether we can throw them out, whether we want to analyze them, what. I say, for right now, we want to see what happened to the gold. Once we find out what happened to the gold, then we'll worry about stuff. The presumption is we will probably smelt the precipitates from each 3 stage of the 3 stages. They all precipitated solids. So we'll probably mix those into some kind of a reducing flux and then smelt it down and see what we get. For example, on that second stage elution, it's supposed to get most of the silver, but we may get, things like iron, copper, stuff like that. Be nice to know. So anyhow, that's what we're doing there. It's a fairly thorough thing, because now we're not pressed for time. We're not sitting there going, oh, we got to get things done, and so we can get back out to the mine, get another load, come back. Oh, got to grind that up while you're doing it. No. We're like, yeah, we got till May. And Lauren's got some maintenance stuff he needs to do. We've been doing a little of the minor stuff and clearing some stuff out. Then he's got some kind of major stuff. He's got a piece of small equipment that he needs to do some testing and probably tear the engine down a bit on. It's likely to have a blown head gasket or something like that. Don't know, but we're clearing the shop out so that he can bring it in and we can tear into that. And I can help him with that stuff to kind of help pay for my being underfoot. Forrest says he bought a 1979 Chevy G30 van bus now, so he can't make fun of the Minor Bago anymore.
Of course he can't make fun of the Minor Bago anymore. Bugs is cool anyway.
It did turn out looking pretty cool. So anyhow, I say we got lots to keep us busy for the foreseeable future. And this next season looks pretty interesting, because we're going to be doing some serious exploration work up on the top of the hill once the snow goes bye-bye for the season. And we'll just try and avoid the grizzly bears up there while we're doing other stuff. It is grizzly country, but very few people die of grizzly bears. So I say that's kind of the rough plans. Does anyone have any good questions to bring up while we're thinking about it? You can barely hold your eyes open. I'm sorry, blind sight. Um, yeah, some of this gets a little bit tedious. I don't blame you, blind sight. Um, it can get annoyingly complicated, as somebody said, and. Once we get it figured out and we get the recipe, so to speak, it should be a lot simpler. But for right now, we got to figure out a lot of stuff. And that's actually fun. Eva's having a good time. Mr. Lodak, about that much plus or minus some. That's okay, blindside. This is probably not the best thing to try and keep you awake. But yeah, it's interesting when you're doing it, even though it takes time. Luckily, Eva's pretty patient, and we got cell phone service out there. So she'll just sit in front of her furnace, monitor the situation, and sit there on her cell phone. And if Lauren's got the music going, you notice what was happening when the music was going. Eva likes to dance. So, as I say, it's a really nice setup over at Lauren's. We really appreciate it. And as I just want to make sure that we
and we can pay in cranberry sauce.
Yeah, we
cran bacon.
We invented something. Eva likes pickled cranberries. And of course, this is the season of the year for you can get fresh cranberries. The pickled cranberries from last year were a little tart for me, so we made them a lot sweeter this year and did a few other minor modifications. And I really liked that. And then she said, well, we could make cranberry orange relish. I go, okay, that sounds interesting. I like cranberry orange. So it's fresh cranberries and mandarin oranges and some cinnamon and ginger and sweetener and
Vidalia onions.
And one finely diced Vidalia onion and everything. Mix that all. And it's like, wow, that tasted real good. We had a little bit left over that didn't quite fit into the jars we had. So it was in the fridge. And then I was cooking up some bulk bacon for something else. And I'm going, bacon good. Cranberries good. Let's try this out. So I took some of the cooked bacon, had it in a bowl, put some of the cranberries on it. I think that's mighty tasty. So I took it to Eva, said, here, try this. She goes, oh! So we've actually made cranberry orange bacon relish. And because Lauren likes stuff hot, we made 3 jars of stuff for him. One without, I think they all had bacon in them. No, one was without the bacon. Pretty sure.
Mm-hmm.
One was without the bacon but with jalapeno. One was just with the bacon, no jalapeno, and one was with the bacon and jalapeno. And he was quite pleased. He tried the bacon jalapeno one and seemed quite happy. Although it did need more jalapeno for him. 1 jalapeno in a pint jar is not enough for Lauren. But it's some good stuff. So we've been kind of doing that. Plus the usual stuff. Came home from Lauren's the other night and water was running off the roof. And I thought, boy, that's a pretty strong flow for melting snow this time of day. So I reached up and it was warm. And anyone with half a brain cell functioning would realize that, when it's 30 degrees outside, you don't get warm water naturally. And indeed, it was not. So at 8 o'clock at night, I had to do some emergency repairs in the building here. Luckily, it was fairly easy to get to and fairly easy to deal with. But things like the keys to the padlock to the compartment had been lost, so I had to take the hinges off. Oh, that's pretty good. That worked out.
See my bear? This is a 1 ounce silver bear from the Republic of Chad. The face value there is worth 5,000 francs. I am betting, though I have not looked it up, that that's less than the 1 ounce of silver it is. But yep, that's my bear. That is my bear, and it's number 559 out of 2,500 minted.
Here, let's see that a second.
From Bullion Exchanges.
It's not very thick, Chris.
But oh, the details are beautiful.
Hello, Eagle Eye. How's it going? We've got all our usual weekly updates done, etc. Eva's not quite ready for her tinfoil hat report. So if anyone's got any questions or wants to talk about anything or whatever, bring it up. We got about a half hour before it's Eva's turn again. And we're looking at having a good time this spring.
I'm going to be having a good time this winter.
Yeah.
Speak for yourself, dude.
And then we theoretically have a trip down to near Dillon, Montana to look look at a mine down there too. Okay, what is the cost difference between removing gold using gravity in comparison to removing sulfides to obtain the gold? Okay. Well, Walt, they're different questions, so to speak. Let me see if I can explain it in a little detail. I don't think I'd prefer to do that, Forrest. Okay. So when the ore body is first formed and your rock is first put in place, you'll typically have iron pyrite or chalcopyrite or some other sulfide in the rock. And then if that rock is subjected to moisture and oxygen, then those sulfides will oxidize. I don't have brown. Let me see, do I have a red? Ah, there's a red. Okay, I'll use red to simulate brown. And so this stuff will oxidize into iron oxides. And the gold in the iron oxides is pretty readily accessible. Now, sometimes as this is being in place, you'll also get chunks of gold by themselves. Okay, let me get black for gold there.
Oh yeah, black and gold just look so alike.
Sorry, I don't have any yellow. So anyhow, you have gold in the rock, gold in the sulfides, gold in the oxides. You're going to generally have some of all of this around your ore body. At depth, you're going to tend to run into these sulfides. Near the surface, you're going to tend to run into these oxides. The gold can be either in discrete particles in the main rock, the worthless rock, which is called the gangue. Usually it'll be quartz, but sometimes it's limestone. And it could be in these oxides or sulfides. If it's in the oxides, it's usually accessible. If it's in the sulfides, it's usually not accessible. You can't leach it. You can't gravity separate it. However, you can gravity separate the sulfides. You can break the rock up and separate the sulfides, and then you could either finally crush those sulfides to get this gold out of them here. Wrong color. You know, that could, oh my goodness, too many colors, too many colors. My brain is overloading. If you crush the rock and create just sulfides, then you could oxidize those and get to the gold. Or you could finally grind that and maybe leach the gold. It all depends on the size of the particles, how they're arranged, and everything else. There is no rule of thumb. You have to take a look at your rock, do some tests, find out where the gold is, what size the gold is, and that'll tell you what you can do to it. So this is kind of the general idea of how it works, but oxidized is much better. The pictures I saw, Walt, were all oxidized that I could see. There might be sulfides in there. Let's see. So anyhow, so the first thing you have to do is you have to sample it. You've taken some samples, they're off for assay. If they come back good, then what we try to do is, oh, and by the way, you need to be able to finally pulverize it, and when you pulverize it, then you can extract the individual gold particles. I do it simply by hand panning, and I can get the coarser gold using one technique and the really, really, really fine gold using another technique. But then you look at those gold particles, and there's the illuminator I was talking about, Walt. But there's a microscope right there. That's all the size it is. And actually measure the gold particles. And there was also somebody, I forgot who it was, wrote me some emails. Don't know if he's watching or not. But he was like, can I heap leach such and such? Okay. Now that's a real good question. And for those of you who don't know what heap leaching is, it's usually done with cyanide solution, although that's becoming less and less favorable anymore. What you do, you take a area of ground and you smooth it out and compact it. You put a pond at the bottom end. Cover all this with plastic. You pile crushed rock on top of it. You sprinkle it with cyanide solution. I should probably get the blue for now, huh? And then the cyanide solution comes out here, and then you extract the gold out of the solution. Again, it's all ore dependent, and. So you want to simulate this process on a much smaller scale. And the way you would do that is what they call column testing. You get some pipe, like 4 or 6 inch diameter pipe. You set them up like 10 foot high. Cap this end, have a little drain coming out. You fill it up with rock. And you put solution in here and let it percolate through the column and then recirculate it. And now what you've done is you've created a simulation of this, a little teeny cross section, or actually vertical section of this heap here. That gives you an idea. When you crush this rock and put it in here, you split off a sample so you know how much gold is in this sample. Then as you run this solution through, you know how much solution you run, you see how much gold winds up in the solution, and you can tell what your recovery percentage is. And the whole advantage of heap leaching is it's a real inexpensive way to do it. Can you all just melt it down from rock? Absolutely, at about 10 million times the cost of the gold you're going to get back. Okay. A fire assay treats about 30 grams of rock, recovers all the gold with high efficiency and high purity, and costs in the neighborhood of $20 actual cost. So call it $1 a gram. $1 per gram of rock. Okay. Now let's suppose you have fire assay here. Fire assay equals $1 per gram of rock. Okay. So that means you're looking at 454 times 200, $908,000 a ton cost. Okay. On the other hand, cyanide tank leaching for a high-grade ore is going to tend to run like probably $20 to $100 per ton. And cyanide heap leaching is probably going to run in the neighborhood of $2 to $10 a ton. Okay? So, in order to recover using the smelt the whole thing down technique, you're going to have $900,000 of gold per ton, which is current price is about $17.50. So you need about 520 ounces per ton to break even. Or on the other hand, you could do this, and at $100 a ton, you're going to be doing about $908,000 a ton profit off of that same grain. So that's why you do that. Okay. It has to be do with the processing costs and consumables and everything else, Shaggy. Oh, absolutely. You would have to get permits for cyanide forest. In Montana, they are not available. It has been banned. In Nevada, it's still legal. If you're in a state that allows cyanide, and I like the Eco Gold X because it works at least as good as cyanide in terms of how fast it dissolves gold in a tank leach. Maybe a little bit more expensive, but it makes it a lot simpler on the permitting end. If you were to try and use cyanide in a somewhat developed country or whatever, if you have a tank leach, it has one big advantage over a heap leach from a permitting thing here. And that is, let's suppose you have a leak right here. You got a tear in your liner and you're losing solution. You got cyanide going into the ground. How do you detect that? How do you deal with it? It gets complicated. It can be done. Double lined with leak detection systems, yeah, it gets pretty pricey. On the other hand, you have a concrete slab like this that's properly lined. Then you have a couple agitation tanks here. And you get a leak in that tank. Not only are you going to see it instantly, but this will completely contain it. By designing this properly, all the slurry can be contained by your containment system, and that can typically make it a lot easier to permit. The permitting on these big mines, the big heap leach mines and stuff, you're looking at hundreds of millions of dollars now just to get the permits. On a much smaller scale, it's not nearly as bad. Yeah, I'm sure that Sierra Club's trying to stop that, Argonaut. But I say that the problem with heap leaching is a lot of stuff happens that you can't see very easy. Tank leaching, you can see it. It's more expensive. It's only suitable for higher grade ores when you're dealing with a high permit environment. What we're doing is on private property and very small scale with non-toxic solution. We can get by with a whole lot more at this scale with a non-toxic solution than you could with cyanide on any scale. But if we were to want to put a decent, let's say we want to go up on the top of the hill there and put in a heap leaching system running, or even a similar system like where we have tank leach and then dump it onto a heap. And we wanted to do 10 tons a day. We're going to be looking at, a pad in the neighborhood of, 500 feet square to last a season or two. Eco Goldex. Okay. There you can see it there, Tanya. It's a little more expensive, and it's proving to be a little tricky to recover the gold out of solution and into a bar. Getting it out of the solution isn't too bad. It'll absorb into a resin real easily. It's the getting it out of the resin that's proven to be a lot more challenging than we thought it would be. The Eco Goldex seems to have multiple chemistries going on at once. We probably have multiple gold complexes at once, and it's just getting annoying. But we'll figure it out. I'm not terribly worried. So, let's say there's some of the variables. As a general rule, heap leaching is suitable if you had a wash plant. Okay, in hard rock gold, we don't call it a wash plant. We call it a gravity separation. You usually are not using sluices. Yeah, it's pretty safe for us. I splash it on me and don't even bother washing it off in many cases. If it's on my face, I'll usually take some time within the next hour to get it washed off. Aside from that, things like hands and everything, I haven't even bothered. It's probably more the metals dissolved in it are probably more dangerous than the solution itself. So anyhow, Shaggy, if you had large size gold, okay, if you had, I don't know, I should have some here somewhere. Let me look, see if I can find. I think I had some of that gold. Yeah, there it is. If you have gold this size, it'll take a century for cyanide to dissolve that. Eco Gold X faster, but I still don't know how long. Okay. But that's easy to get by gravity techniques. Now, you're not going to find much of that in hard rock in general. Okay. But if you do have gold 100 mesh, maybe even 200 mesh in hard rock, that's a piece of cake to gravity separate from finely ground rock. Okay. Then you'd have to say, well, how much gold will we have that we're not getting with the gravity separation? And if the answer is a lot, then yes, you would still want to leach it after you've done your gravity separation. You would not want to do just a gravity separation because the coarser gold isn't going to leach. It's too big. In our case, we were actually doing some sluice testing when we're dumping our tank, and we were getting some chunks. I think the smallest ones were about 150 mesh. So, it was in the 150 to 100 mesh range. We took some of those chunks, actually put them in some Eco Gold X, and it looks like 150 mesh gold in a ideal agitation situation is going to dissolve in Eco Gold X in about 5 days. Okay. And what you're going to get in a heap leach, much slower than that. The gold that we have, on the other hand, is 80% passing 2000 mesh. And it dissolves pretty darn quick and doesn't do it very good at all with a gravity separation. It's useless. That's one of the things with the hard rock. There's a lot of different things that can be there, and one size does not fit all. Thus, the phrase that has been popularized on this chat, and. Because as we keep talking about this, people are going like, and yes, it does get more complicated. It's not like Gold Rush where you just throw it through a trommel, run it down a sluice, end of story. No, it's actually not even that simple on Gold Rush, but they don't probably want to go inside the gold room where they're using their tables and stuff. But anyhow.
Well, no, because then people would notice the stuff they get off the tables is radically different than the stuff they pour in the thing on the way in.
Yeah, that is a possibility. But anyhow, so you are absolutely correct that you can often do a leach afterwards. Now, at a place called the American Girl Mine, they set up their mill and did not put in a gravity circuit. They had a mill for the higher grade ore that was going to send it straight to a tank leach and stuff. And they had a place where the stuff was flowing, the slurry was flowing, that would tend to plug up with a sludge and then would have to be manually removed. Luckily, they had a couple guys who didn't mind manually removing it, because as they found a few months later, it was about 25% gold. That's why it was sludging up. The systems for a hard rock mine can get quite complicated, and you can have different ores in different places where in that working heading there, or that vein, or that part of the ore body, you've got a fully oxidized ore, microfine gold. It goes to the leach, no problem. Over there, you got some high grade stuff, and it's, get to you just a second, Tonya. It's got coarse gold. And so we need a gravity circuit and a leach circuit. And then further down, we got sulfides. And for that, we're going to need to do a gravity concentration, then roast the sulfides, then leach the residue. And over here, we got some stuff that's got a lot of natural carbon in the shale next to it. And if we use cyanide to leach that, it just takes the gold and puts it right into that carbon. So we have to use a thiosulfate leach to dissolve it because the cyanide leach won't work. That's the kind of complexity you can run into. Your average microscale miner isn't going to be able to deal with that complexity, but that's why you have to look at what you've got, do some tests, figure out what will work, and do that cheaply. Okay, gravity separation, you can do a fine crush and pan it, then assay your tailings and weigh the amount of gold you get. That will tell you what you can pan about as well as any gravity separation. Okay, so you can do that as a proxy for a gravity separation device. Uh, with leaching, you'll use bottle rolls to simulate an agitation leaching. You column leaches to simulate heap leaches and things like that. There is a couple of problems with that Tanya. Will it dissolve gold? Absolutely. Like that little vial I showed you, Aqua Regia will dissolve that fairly quickly. The cost is very, very expensive compared to these sort of solutions. Okay. If the gold particles are so big that these solutions won't deal with it, you can get it by gravity separation, which is the cheapest way. Crush the rock, run it through like a sluice box or a table or something like that. Just get the gold right out of it. Bingo, done. That's ideal. That's what you hope to do. Okay. One of the other problems will be if you were to try and use Aqua Regia on limestone ore, it's not going to work because the limestone will neutralize your Aqua Regia. The Aqua Regia is expensive. It's hazardous. It creates these hazardous fumes. It's very corrosive, and I mean very corrosive to touch. The stuff we're using, like I said, I've had it splash on my face, not even bothered washing it off for an hour. Okay, it's that mild. It's probably not recommended, but what the hell. And Aqua Regia, it'd be eating your skin up real fast. And as such, it's just not ideal for this kind of process. When you're doing refining, then yes, Aqua Regia can come in handy to do that. But this is when you're dealing with, high concentrates and things that are running in the percentage points gold, not less than 1 ounce per ton, which is 1 part in 40,000 roughly. 1 ounce per ton is considered to be a high grade ore just about anywhere under any conditions. And that's 1 part in 40,000. That's what 1 ounce per ton is. So that gives you an idea how little gold there is and how much rock. And just to wet a ton of rock, you're going to need about 1/10 of a ton of liquid. Well, 1/10 of a ton of Aqua Regia, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to be very hazardous. And if it's a basic ore, it's just going to neutralize it. So those are some of the things you look at. Aqua Regia is never used in mining. It's only used in refining. Once you get things to a pretty good concentrate, then it can come in handy, especially at small scales. If you have a few ounces to purify, that might make some sense. When you're talking tons and tons of rock, no, it just doesn't work. It's like, do you use a sledgehammer to drive nails this big? No, it doesn't. Could you? Theoretically, it's the wrong tool for the job. Okay, does that help, Tonya? Yes, and Chris is right because aqua regia dissolves a lot of stuff. To analyze a rock sample, you can dissolve it in aqua regia and then run that acid through an analyzer, and it's going to be able to tell all kinds of elements from that. It can measure your copper and your lead and your this and your that and the other at the same time because it dissolved everything. So um, that's where you do use a lot of aqua regia is there. Even in gold refining on a large scale, they'll usually use an electrolytic cell where they have cyanide, and they will have uh, impure gold anode and a pure gold cathode, and they apply an electric current, and it'll dissolve the gold, go through the solution, and plate there, and other stuff either stays in solution or settles to the bottom of the tank as a residue, leaving you pure gold. But even that is usually done with a cyanide solution. Do you know, Tonya, what the grade of the ore is? That is how many ounces of gold per ton of ore, or how many grams of gold per 1,000 kilograms of ore you have in it. Do you have any idea? Yes, Horton, because if it is appropriate, it is by far the cheapest thing, the cheapest way to dissolve the gold. It can be done in huge quantities, 50,000 tons a day, not a problem. But in micro scale, you have to have kind of a little bit of special circumstances, but not too bad. It's still really cheap. It's not terribly efficient. You may only get 60% recovery, but if you've got a low grade ore, a tenth of an ounce per ton in small quantities, well, that's really, really cheap. We can maybe make that work. Okay, Tonya, that is one of the critical things that you need to find out. You need to know how much gold you have, what the size of the gold particles are, and how they are held in the rock. If you have a lot of sulfides, it's a high probability that they are associated either on the outside of the sulfides or inside of the sulfides. If they are outside of the sulfides, that makes your job easier. If they're inside the sulfides and they're very fine, you got a problem because those sulfides are like glass and the solution can't get through them. So you need to break the sulfides down. Again, the cheapest way to do that on a large scale is usually to heat them till they're glowing red and let the sulfur burn. What you're left with then is an iron oxide, which is porous. The solution can work through it. So, Tonya, um, you need to be able to crush the rock fairly fine, okay? Not necessarily in large quantities, but fairly fine, um, to do sampling yourself. Do you have any numbers at all? Is this an old mine or an ore body that's been worked before in any way? Why is it that you believe that there is gold at this particular location? I mean, I have no idea. So I'm relying on you to give me some idea of what kind of situation we're talking about here. Old mines is a very, very common situation where somebody was mining in the past, the mine stopped working for whatever reason, got abandoned, somebody else picks it up or buys it, and now they've got a gold mine. But they have very little information. So, say, what kind of situation do you have in terms of why do you think you've got gold there? Is it an old mine? Since you say you don't have any idea, I presume you didn't see something interesting, sample it, and send it off for assay. Okay. It's a rose gold mine. So in the past, they were able to mine rose gold there, which is an alloy of gold. Okay. Um, an old mine. What country is this in, if I might ask? Because again, a lot of places have lots of records they've kept over the years that you can go back to. Not me. You better find someone before you play too many games over there, Tricky. I don't want to come back here next week and you're not here and then you don't come back ever. So you be real careful, okay? So Tanya, say what country are you in? California. Okay, good. California will typically have lots of records. Chris Georgie there lives in California, and
it's going to be a gold and copper mine. Then.
He's really good at the records thing. So there's lots of places you can find information. Yeah, it might be tricky to find you though, Tricky. Uh, and so you can look the old newspapers in your area. Sometimes you can go in there and find old articles from when the mine was working. Chris is asking you questions here. He's a very good person to answer these kind of questions, Tanya. And he's trustworthy too. But
he's in California.
Yeah, I know. I told her. So they're going to have records in basically geology departments and things like that too. Different states compile this information to a different extent and to a different level of detail. The easiest way to get information is to find your mine in old records that happen to have enough information. The one we're going to on the top of the hill there, we have a mine basic diagram which was put on the claim maps. So we're good shape there, but the description of the mine is very minor, and the description of the ore body doesn't even give the grades, tonnages, or things like that. So you may not be able to get much information. You might be able to get a lot of information, but the cheapest information is that which already exists and somebody else has spent a lot of money to get. Tricky is still here? It was ore a friend collected and I've had for years. So you don't own the mine, you just have some ore. Does this ore have visible gold in it where you can look at it and you can see the gold particles? Because if so, it's probably worth more money as specimen gold than to actually get the gold out of it. So how much ore do you have? Do you have access to the mine itself? And can you see gold in it? Okay. Better send him an email, Chris. Yeah, I'd hate something to happen to Tricky. Okay, I need to keep talking here because it's just dead silence. Dead air is not good. I presume Tanya can continue to hear me. Okay, Tanya, no problem. Um, but gold ore comes in anything from very low grade to very high grade. And the higher grade stuff will sometimes have what you call visible gold. You can look at the rock and you actually see gold particles in it or little wire gold or whatever. If those are significantly large, substantially, then the collector value of the rock exceeds the gold value in the rock. And so the best way to make the money is don't spend anything on processing, no big deal. Find someone who will buy it for jewelry or specimens or something like that. That's why that's important. When you look at the rock, can you just look at it and go, yeah, there's gold, there's gold, there's gold? Or do you have to go, that sort of thing? Yeah, Tonya, but there's like 100,000 mines in California. That's why Chris is trying to narrow it down a little bit. You got 1,500 miles by 300, 400 miles, and it's a tens of thousands of mines. It's, if you could find out more details, you could do it. But if all you've got is an ore sample, you've got some rocks, you don't have a mine, that means it's a totally different situation, because all you've got is what you've got, if that's the case. Okay. Rock shops, the when you have oh gosh, what do you call it? Special events where a bunch of rock dealers get together and stuff like gem and mineral shows. Yep, exactly. That sort of thing. You will find people who will be interested in buying stuff like that. I mean, even here in Helena, Montana, population 30,000, they had at least one or two guys that would have bought specimens like that. Okay. Is gold found with small crystals in black hard rock? It can be. That doesn't mean it is gold. Okay. Yes, Tony, you're going to need to do a little research here and find out a little bit better what you got. Again, you never specifically answered the question, but I presume you only have a certain amount of material that you have. You don't have a mine or a claim or anything like that. Just you got some rocks. Is that correct? Yeah, I imagine if you're anywhere near Chris, he could probably meet up with you and take a look at it. He's in Forest Hill, which is near Auburn, which is in the foothills above Sacramento. Sure, Tanya, not a problem. This is where these live streams can get fun when somebody calls in with something. It gets even more interesting when it's who was it from Algeria?
Yeah.
That had a rock. And so that got real interesting. And everyone, Chris here is trying to help out and everything. We just do that. It's part of our fun is to help people. So Southern San Bernardino. Okay. We have a gentleman in the Los Angeles basin that might be able to look at your rocks. Typo, Jeff.
That would be large, right?
You're currently in Las Vegas. Okay. Say there should be some people like that. Are you living in Las Vegas right now, I presume, Tonya. But there are people around there that should be able to help you. It's a big enough city and in the right neck of the woods. It shouldn't be too hard to find somebody um, that can give you a little hand. It's awfully hard to judge anything by photographs and such. It's pretty much you almost have to look at the rocks to see what you've got. And somebody who wasn't too far from Vegas, forget who it was, had a opal mine, was it? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the best spot is. Tonya, the term Tucson Gem and Mineral Show is about 50 different shows at one time. Where the heck is Lodi? Not sure. Lodi, California. Lodi, California. Where's the map? There's a map. Scroll out. Looks like near Sacramento there. That would be, yeah. That would be quite a way. That would be like a 15-hour drive from Las Vegas. Oops. No. Cancel. Thank you. Oh, that's a good idea, Rob Bob. Yeah, just I say look it up and see what's available. And again, you got to have a good idea of what you've got. Yeah, that's not too far from Vegas, Forest. That's not a bad idea. Quartzsite, probably about a 4-hour drive from Vegas. Pretty good roads. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Tonya. Take some of your specimens with you to Quartzsite. They have a big show. They got a lot of people there. Start asking around, or you might even be able to, probably on the internet, they'll have a website for the Quartzsite Gem and Mineral Show, and look it up for gold ore specimens or something like that. And look, find some people there. You could even call them up beforehand that way, and that'd be an easy way to find them and talk to them, at the show, because you don't have to go looking around too much. You already have them located, and boom, there you go. You can also directly contact the organizers and ask them, who do you know that is interested in gold ore specimens? Yeah, Argonaut's correct. Local gem and mineral clubs. I'm sure you've got some in Las Vegas.
Oh, yeah.
And Chris is absolutely correct. If the rock around the gold is the right quality that it'll polish, and you have enough gold visible in it, then they make jewelry and stuff out of it. Again, now you got something that can be vastly more valuable than the gold in it would actually be if you recovered it and sold it. Oh, there you go, Tonya. Done. Deal.
Yeah, rose gold is actually not as valuable as yellow.
Yeah, she's got a bunch of selenite. She was planning to go to the Quartzsite show. Sweet. Done deal. Yeah, get on their website. If they don't have a list of the types of things and who the people are, get a hold of the organizers and ask them. Yeah, Chris is right there. If you're dealing with that quality of rock, Yeah, make sure you keep all the cuttings.
Mhm.
That's correct.
Totally.
Absolutely. So there you go. I think we've got a good answer for you there. Yeah, try to go there. Well, I think I see somebody with a tinfoil hat in the background here. So, um, yeah, Quartzite, if you have any more questions by next week, come back on. We're here at 6 o'clock Montana time every Monday.
Yeah, local lapidary clubs too. There's quite
Possibly,
a
yeah.
few of them around Vegas.
Oh, David is getting excited there. Little one.
Hi, everybody. So, I have a question for y'all before we start. The dude and I were out and about in Helena, Montana on Black Friday. And it seemed that Black Friday had been canceled
Just a lighter shade of
in
gray.
some bizarre and unaccountable way, and nobody told us. I'll tell you, this was so Twilight Zone. It was so Twilight Zone, it was practically zombie apocalypse. So we get to the Walmart, and ye old Walmart's parking lot was actually slightly less emptier than your average Friday.
Slightly less empty or more empty?
More emptier. You know, and there was less cars. So then we go wandering inside to buy the few little groceries we needed, and I started taking a look at the carts going by and the very few shoppers. And there were no doorbuster deals in those carts. There were no toys in those carts. There were no Christmas ornaments in those carts. Those carts contained staples, and not very many of those either. And then we cruised the whole store. Now, you know, on Black Friday, you know how you go to Walmart the day before Thanksgiving and the big main aisles are choked with pallets full of crap with signs on them just ready for the madness of Black Friday. And if you go at around noon on Black Friday the way we did, those main aisles are usually wide and empty again because as those pallets empty, they disappear and nothing gets put in their place because it's too busy. Walmart had more employees in there than I've seen in about a year. And there were two empty pallets. Empty pallet number one was the absolute cheapest $128 TV. Empty pallet number two was the absolute cheapest $25 toy. All the doorbuster price kitchen gadgets, the other TVs, the other various tech, the clothes, the other various toys were still there. Yeah, there was no Black Friday in Helena, Montana. So this got me curious. So I get to Wall Street Silver. I'm getting to that forest. I get to Wall Street Silver, and I asked my peeps, my fellow apes in the jungle. I said, "Yo, silverbacks, did anybody else notice that Black Friday seemed to be canceled in your area?" And the thread kind of blew up, and there were hundreds of people that were attaching photos of their empty Walmarts and their empty Targets and their empty Home Depots and Lowe's and Costco's, and nothing was disappearing. So it turned out that Black Friday had not happened in a lot of places. So I decided to start looking up the early reporting trends for internet sales. And yeah, the early reporting trends were celebrating internet sales being up an entire 2% this year, going by gross revenues. Well, considering that inflation is supposedly ostensibly running around 8%, if your gross revenues are only up 2%, then that actually means that a lot of shit is not going anywhere. Very, very suspicious, that is. But it got even more suspicious as it went along. Because the dude here, in a rare moment of perspicacity and actually noticing something, pointed out to me, he said, "Did you see any of those Walmart riot videos on Reddit this year?" Well, no, I didn't. And that's the thing. Every year on Reddit, you will see tens, dozens, even hundreds of Walmart riot videos from Black Friday. And everybody, even during the COVID lockdown madness, there were dozens and dozens of Walmart riot videos. People fighting over parking spaces, people fighting over doorbuster deals. Where are all my riot videos this year? I have no riot videos. I'm annoyed, okay? That's not the only thing that has me annoyed, but I found that to be mildly annoying. And the news reports were not finding malls of happy shoppers. I saw one news station, I believe it was out in the area of Columbus, Ohio, that was broadcasting live from the mall, and they were trying to keep the shot in really tight on the chick, while she's talking about the happy holiday shoppers. And they accidentally pulled back a little bit. There were like 7 people on the escalator behind her. Nobody in the stores. Same thing happened with a lot of those Walmart videos I saw from various news organizations across the country, with the nice tight view on the reporter and a couple of people hanging out behind them pretending to be shoppers, but probably weren't shoppers. And when they accidentally pulled back a little bit, the long line of totally empty cash registers, kind of like the one in my Walmart. So, what was everybody seeing on Black Friday where you were? Did anybody even go out on Black Friday? Because I didn't see cars anywhere on Black Friday here.
Well, we saw cars, but nothing unusual.
Yeah, I mean, not Black Friday traffic. There was no
Nope.
Black Friday traffic anywhere. And on ye old Amazon, let me put it this way. I now have confirmed the wide-ranging conspiracy to deprive me of socks. I have been patiently waiting for my Walmart to get black over the calf, fruit of the loom socks for 8 or 9 months now. Okay, I'm a patient soul. The goddess is a patient soul here. 8 or 9 months I have been checking the displays. I've seen exactly 14 packages of white over the calf Fruit of the Loom socks. Well, anybody who wears white when they're out mining is clinically insane, okay? No black socks. So I finally decided to bite the bullet and go on Amazon. I said, okay, I've got a couple of things in my Amazon cart already before the price goes up again. So I'm going to just put in Fruit of the Loom black over the calf socks, and the Fruit of the Loom Amazon store is going to come up, and I'm going to get my black socks, and guess what? Nope. I am beginning to suspect that Fruit of the Loom decided to punish me, their number one most loyal customer, by discontinuing the black over the calf socks. Because all they had was white. And by the way, the price on them went up from $12.88 for the last 6-pack I bought to $19.88 on sale for Black Friday. Just so you know. So the goddess is taking a big risk here. I ordered some really supremely rather ugly blue over the calf soccer socks. The reason I ordered ugly blue over the calf soccer socks was because I could get 12 pairs for $27. And I figure blue is marginally better than white when you're mining. And with any luck, these socks will actually work. I have my doubts here, okay? I sincerely doubt this, but my only other option at this point would be to buy the white ones and dye them black which I would be happy to do if I could find black writ dye anywhere in the last 7 or 8 months, which I haven't been able to find either. Who knows? You know? Hi, Lars. Hi, Jeff. Yeah, the deals will be around later, we hope. Walmart already raised their prices again, and we shall see. Hi, Goldstream. We shall see what happens. And in other totally and completely unrelated news, Lord Malarkey has pronounced that he wants Congress to somehow mandate the railroad companies to come to a deal with unspecified consequences if they refuse to come to a deal. This is something of a big deal because this whole kerfluffle started some months before the recent midterm selection, if you will, that we had. And the railroads were planning to go on strike. And Lord Malarkey's administration farted around forever, completely ignored the situation. The media ignored the situation. And then at the 11th hour, Lord Malarkey supposedly swept in, had a roundtable discussion, and the strike was off. Well, it turns out the strike wasn't exactly off. Not that the media bothered to tell anybody about that. But they didn't tell most people what election. We had a selection. You know, they didn't bother to tell most people that a strike was in the offing to begin with until Lord Malarkey pretty much had it settled. And then, a few weeks later, persistent rumors and pieces of paper began to surface that indicated that the timing of this grand rapprochement between the administration and the railroads was highly suspect. And then the whole story got memory hold again. Well, the story is beginning to try to escape its memory hole now because 2 or 3 of the railroad companies involved have decided they did not like the contract that had ostensibly been negotiated. And the deadline to strike or not strike is coming up sometime around December 5th. And in the background, in certain sectors of the supply chain, a full-on panic mode meltdown has ensued as these people are planning to mothball and sideline and park various types of hazmat materials and time-sensitive materials that can't be trusted on rail unless they can get to where they're supposed to be very specifically. This is rather ominous. That was not happening to this degree the last time the railroad strike reared its little head and supposedly got taken care of. So we shall see what we shall see coming up December 5th. But I kind of do have to wonder why so many people are out searching for alternative transport for diesel and uranium and various chemicals and a whole bunch of other things that can't be caught in transit on the rails. So we shall see what we shall see, you know. Yeah, railroad strike means all kinds of shortage. 30% of the nation runs on rail, which would be a little bit problematic, shall we say. But rest assured, Lord Malarkey shall once again ride to the rescue. I am very, very confident that this will happen now that he has ordered Congress to do something or else, and Congress is too busy trying to push through a new 1-year budget / continuing / resolution thing before the House changes hands in January. Methinks life could get a little bit interesting in that regard. But life is going to get interesting anyway. There is no doubt about this. So let's see what's going on in mining this week. BHP has averted a strike at the world's biggest copper mine. Good for BHP. Let's see what they got up to. Unionized workers at Escondida mine in northern Chile have accepted BHP's latest offer and will not move forward with a strike that was planned for November 28th and 30th. Workers at Sindicato 1, which represents more than 2,000 members, backed on Monday the agreement reached last week between union representatives and the Australian miner. The deal, which was subject to vote, came after days of negotiations with union representatives who had called for a strike on November 21st and 23rd due to multiple non-compliances, infractions, and violations allegedly committed by BHP. Well, it wouldn't surprise me if they were committed by BHP. This proposal contains a series of concrete and verifiable measures to improve the hygiene and safety of workers. Well, one would hope so, the union said in a statement, especially an intense joint inspection program between the union and the company of all work areas. Shouldn't there have been one of those before? Just asking for a friend here. With the deal, BHP has averted a strike at the world's largest copper mine at a time of tight global supplies and high prices for the orange metal, a key material needed for the world's transition to a green economy. Here we go, that whole green economy thing again. The Escondida copper mine is responsible for about 5% of the world's total copper output, and Chile is the world's top producer of the metal. In 2017, unionized workers at the mine staged a 44-day strike, the longest in Chilean mining history. The labor action cost the company $740 million in losses and meant a contraction of about 1.3% of Chile's GDP. While Escondida is a majority owned and operated by BHP, Rio Tinto, and a Japanese consortium that includes Mitsubishi Corporation and JX Nihon Mining and Metals, also holds a stake in the mine. Chile's state-owned mining company, Codelco, the world's biggest copper producer, warned last week global shortages of the metal may reach 8 million tons by 2032. A soaring demand continues to offset new project numbers. Well, at least they averted a strike. This is good. How long that stays the case, we shall see. Las Bambas mine resumes copper output. Transportation is still halted. MMG Limited resumed copper production at Las Bambas mine in Peru after a protest was lifted, a source close to the company said on Monday, but added transportation of the metal to port remained blocked by a separate conflict. Okay. Las Bambas has reduced its operations to 30% of its usual capacity earlier this month due to protests. Protests against the Chinese-owned mine are recurrent and have often disrupted operations amid complaints by nearby indigenous communities that the company's huge mineral wealth has not translated into better living conditions for them. The source said a protest in the town of Calehuahuaco has been lifted, which allowed production to resume. But a separate protest blocking the road Las Bambas uses to transport its copper onto a seaport for shipment to clients remains blocked along the Chuquiviraca's province. Peru is the world's number 2 copper producer, and Las Bambas ranks among the largest producers of the red metal. Since Las Bambas began operations in 2016, the miner has faced over 540 days of road blockades, according to statistics kept by the company. The goddess has to wonder if some of those road closures couldn't have been prevented. The question is just how much appeasement would be needed and how much effort would be needed to prevent them. Consensus forecast is for 2 years of stagnant copper prices. What else is new? And First Majestic has gotten into a deal with Metalla, which is owned by that Tucker dude, self-styled royalty consolidator, Metalla Royalty and Streaming, has signed a deal to acquire a portfolio of 8 precious metal royalties from First Majestic Silver in exchange for $20 million in Metalla scrip. One has to wonder why our friend Keith over at First Majestic is going for this deal, but it could be interesting. The deal will add about 7 million silver equivalent ounces at about $2.90 per ounce on royalties, covering an underlying 343 million ounces of metal to Metallus Holdings. The Vancouver-based company said that once closed, First Majestic will hold about 8.5% of its outstanding shares, subject to a 4-month holding period, and become a cornerstone shareholder. That is an interesting, very, very interesting plus on First Majestic's. Good for them. The acquired portfolio includes one producing gold royalty on First Majestic's La Encantada gold operation, 4 development silver royalties, Del Toro, La Guitarra, San Martin, and La Parilla, and 3 advanced exploration silver royalties, Plomosas, La Joya, and La Luz, all on assets in Mexico. One hopes they're not in the Zacatecas state, since at the moment the cartels are in a state of open warfare, taking over the largest silver mining state in Mexico and one of the largest silver mining places in the world. Critically, Metallus said in news releases the royalties cover 100% of all the concessions on 8 properties, with significant exploration upside covering 1,750 square kilometers of ground. According to Metalla, adding 8 royalties from First Majestic will expand its portfolio to 79 royalties and streams, increase cash flow, and enhance Metalla's development pipeline. It also diversifies its counterparty base. Ooh, lots of big fancy marketing words in there. But BMO Capital Markets research mining analyst Rene Cartier estimates the transaction to be dilutive to its modeled value for Metalla values, since most of the acquired portfolio is non-producing assets with less than clear visibility for asset restarts or productions.
Pig in a poke?
Yeah, the goddess is thinking this looks a lot like a pig in a poke. Of course, the goddess has looked at a lot of First Majestic things, and, hey, this is a pretty good pig in a poke. Of the 8 royalties acquired, the La Encantada royalty is the only asset producing where Metalla is acquiring 100% gross value royalty on the gold produced, limited to 1,000 ounces annually. Mirroring our production estimates, we do not see the cap threshold achieved and reflect a mine life of 4.5 years at this time, Cartier wrote in a note to clients. On the other First Majestic assets in the portfolio, only San Martin is expected to achieve production in the future. Aligning our outlook, production is estimated in 2025 over a 6-year mine life, Cartier wrote. At this time, no production is assumed from Del Toro, La Parilla, and La Luz, where these assets are seen as future optionality. So 3 pigs in a poke, several possibilities, and 1 good producer in return for a nice chunk of Metalla. The predominantly silver-focused transaction this morning indicates royalty portfolios are still available in the market. Although we estimate the transaction is dilutive to our net asset value model, improved visibility for asset restarts and exploration success could provide upside to our estimates and highlights the embedded optionality, particularly at higher silver prices in our view. So we're seeing something here that the goddess was not quite expecting that we'll get back to at the end of the article. Given the all-share transaction, First Majestic has aligned itself with Metalla for future growth and re-rating potential. Metalla has grown its portfolio by offering sellers a combination of cash and scrip, giving third-party vendors a chance to monetize royalty interests in a tax-efficient manner while maintaining exposure to the assets. Over time, sellers should also benefit from Metalla's rising share price. The transaction is expected to close during the first quarter of 2023. First Majestic focuses on silver and gold production in Mexico and the U.S. The company currently owns and operates the San Dimas Silver Gold Mine, the Jarrett Canyon Gold Mine, the Santa Elena Silver Gold Mine, and the La Encantada Silver Mine. Earlier in November, Vox Royalty Corporation acquired the rights to a portfolio of 4 different NSR royalties from First Quantum Minerals. The portfolio includes a 2% NSR on a portion of the Estrades project owned by Galway, a 0.49% NSR on the Opawika project owned by Imperial Mining, a 2% NSR, including a 1% buyback, on the Winston Lake project owned by Medellin Resources, and a 2% NSR on the Norbeck and Millenbach concessions owned by Falco Resources.
Explain what an NSR is.
Good question.
Net smelter return. That means gross production.
Yes. Very good. You explain. The goddess is opining and pontificating here.
In other words, they're basically saying a certain percentage of total production.
Yes, I know what they're saying. They're saying the net smelter return here.
We have viewers.
Now, this is a very interesting article. For those who aren't familiar with First Majestic, Keith over there, Keith Newmeyer, has a very interesting business model going. He's got himself some silver mines, and they produce gold too. And unlike most of the silver miners that we have out there, the dude is actively developing a retail branch in the sense that if you become a shareholder of First Majestic, you have the option as a shareholder of buying nice silver rounds and silver bars directly from them at an extremely low premium. The lowest premiums you're going to get anywhere. They're just barely above spot. They're barely above melt value. And he's looking into a model that will allow him to pay his dividend stockholders their dividends in silver. What he would like to see happen in our industry is for miners, especially silver miners, to finally pull their heads out of their butts, join together, and create an effective lobby to deal with the yo-yos in DC and the yo-yos at various government agencies, and get actual direct retail to customer things going at a greater rate, so that the miners are not directly supporting and facilitating the paper manipulation of gold and silver prices. It is one of his beliefs that this is one way that we can, first of all, get some genuine advances in public land policy changes, and at the same time move closer to price discovery in silver and gold by getting the metal directly into people's hands. Interesting group of people, really kind of an interesting dude. There are some videos from him on Kitco. And not that I trust Kitco for much, but if it's on video, it's hard for them to fudge it, you know. So his little team up here with the Metalla people, Metalla deciding to buy some of his projects is quite interesting. And the deal that's going on there looks like it's going to be a good one. Very cool. And in the science department, me and my science, common fungus turns out to be an inexpensive, effective way to deal with mercury pollution. Basically, some scientific type yo-yos started looking at mercury contaminated ground, and they wondered why it is that in some of this ground where no plants will grow, there were plants growing. They found some bacteria that effectively protected plants from developing mercury poisoning and from absorbing toxic mercury. They also found some very nice little bacteria that actually eat mercury. So they started playing GMO and Franken science games in the lab and doing some gene slicing on these bacteria. And so far, it looks like they have come up with a bacteria that if they spray it in an infected, in a poisoned pond, or they spray it in poisoned rivers, they put it in poisoned water, the mercury essentially disappears because the bacteria eat it. This is cool. Even cooler, they discovered that if you dip seeds from various plants, if you treat those seeds with this bacteria before you plant them, you can grow safe-to-eat crops in mercury-contaminated soil. If this idea expands and it actually works out at scale outside the lab, this is going to be a real game changer for a lot of areas that have been contaminated. So this is a good thing. The goddess is pleased with this level of sciencing going on here. Somebody has to be doing some decent sciencing. I mean, really now. And in other sciencing type news, let me see if I can find it. Ooh, that's pretty. Didn't see that one. The birthplace of gold-rich stars has finally been revealed, as if we didn't know it. Copper's biggest mystery is finally cracking. Now, the dude back there was saying earlier, you've got your sulfide ores, etc., and it creates almost a kind of glass over the ore. And, you have to be able to get inside that to get the material. This is a problem that has actually vexed the mining industry for some time. The warnings keep getting louder. The world is hurtling toward a desperate shortage of copper. Humans are more dependent than ever on a metal we've used for 10,000 years. New deposits are drying up, and the type of breakthrough technologies that transformed other commodities failed to materialize for copper until now. In what could prove a game changer for global supply, a U.S. startup says it solved a puzzle that has frustrated the mining world for decades. If successful, the discovery by Jetty Resources could unlock millions of tons of new copper to feed power grids, building sites, and car fleets around the globe, narrowly and possibly even closing the deficit. At its simplest, Jetty's technology is focused on a common type of ore that traps copper behind a thin film, making it too costly and difficult to extract. The result is vast quantities of metal have been left stranded over the decades in mine waste piles on the surface and untapped deposits. To crack the code, Jetty developed a specialized catalyst to disrupt that layer, allowing rock-eating microbes to go to work releasing the trapped copper. So they have apparently come up with a game-changing way to mine those waste dumps that can't be mined because of the cost that it would take to crack them. The technology still needs to be proven on a large scale, but the richest at stake are pulling in some of the industry's most powerful players. BHP Group, the biggest mining company, is already an investor and has now spent months negotiating for a trial plant at the crown jewel copper mine, Escondida, in Chile. And they're not the only ones. So it will be very interesting to see what happens to copper prices if all of a sudden a copper supply becomes abundant. That should be interesting. And more to the point, will this technology transfer to other metals? Because copper isn't the only metal that's being left behind on waste heaps around the world. That's just the way things work. And yeah, micro-remediation is something that is really cool. I mean, I'm like, yeah, cool science here. In terms of gold and silver, the one thing that everybody noticed about Black Friday is if you were trying to shop on any of the bullion sites online, you were probably facing crashing websites, flash deals sold out in less than a minute in the time it took you to get it into the cart and then actually get to the checkout because of lag time. AppMex was down for hours and really, really upset a lot of people. And LCSs across the country were slammed. Our personal LCS is still waiting to get an order for about 1,000 copper rounds, and I got the last three ordinary silver rounds. And I got the last three ordinary ones they had in the shop today that were 1 ounce rounds, because of course the quarter ounce and half ounce, the premium is just, oh, ouch, 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 not going there. People are beginning to buy precious metals again. But now we're seeing different types of people that are also looking at buying precious metals. And the forecast for gold is looking very bullish, actually, at the moment. If we can hold the 1750 range, the next upward break that people are discussing is around 2,200 an ounce. With silver, of course, everybody is still convinced it ain't going to go nowhere. We'll be lucky if we see 25 an ounce. But that's not the point. One way that silver is going straight through the roof is silver jewelry. It is the fastest growing jewelry out there. And it makes sense because in this economy, who can afford gold jewelry? Jewelry always carries a ridiculous premium anyway. And so it does not surprise me at all that people are turning to silver for jewelry. And I'm sure they're going to continue turning to silver for jewelry. Um, the utter and complete lack of a Black Friday of any consequence, tied to the sky high credit card debt and a few other things, is yet another red flag in our sinking economy. We're all familiar with that thing. Speaking of which, BlockFi declared bankruptcy today on Cyber Monday, which is just funny as heck. And I have lost count of the number of emails I'm getting from Coinbase telling me how safe they are, how secure they are, and you should really consider buying some cryptocurrency this week. Not on your life. The crypto world is still getting ripples and add on effects and trickle down effects of all kinds from this whole FTX debacle going on, which shouldn't surprise anybody because that is the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. I doubt they'll actually admit that, but it is indeed the biggest Ponzi scheme in history. And by the way, if you want to know the real crazy, creepy soap opera level shit going on with that little group of people when they were down in the Bahamas, hit the tinfoil hat part of the web. They were all really, really weird. Okay? I mean, just really, really weird. What is funny about this is the same people that took a bath in FTX, the same people that took a bath when the last one went down. What was it? Celsius. Oh, yes, Celsius. The same people that have seen multiple centralized currency outlets disappear, get hacked, go offline, that have seen hundreds and hundreds of these things go away, are showing up on Wall Street Silver on Reddit to try to explain to us why cryptocurrencies are the way of the future. It doesn't seem to dawn on them that nobody in their right mind wants a digital currency to be the future. No idea why. Don't forget to buy pet food. Bye.
I agree, Forrest. Eva's got a phrase she uses: if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And that's true. Money in a bank account is not yours, it's the bank's.
Yeah, we're not even going to get into that whole Credit Suisse thing.
I mean,
$9.5 billion and counting.
They'll give it to you under certain conditions if they want to, but it ain't yours. So, yeah. Especially in things like emergency reserves, you want stuff that has a high degree of certainty. Shaggy says cheers.
Cheers, Shaggy.
Anyhow, I hope the lady got your thing, Chris. I wasn't able to watch all of that stuff. Soil and Green. Well, that's after the bugs. First we eat the bugs, then the Soil and Green. Yeah, Forrest. It's been a while since I've seen you here, but yeah, she does the tinfoil hat. I do the sign language interpretation using my own special language, which is, I don't know, kind of invented on the spot.
It probably makes more sense than Newspeak.
Oh, I don't know. Some of the signs I'm doing make perfect sense. uh, anyhow, so um, yeah, she's doing pretty good for us. And thank you for all the help when she was feeling bad down there in Idaho. Uh, so again, this week it's going to be a lot of lab testing. Uh, be helping Lauren with some repair and maintenance items. Sometime in the not too distant future, we'll probably be able to get my truck in there and get those shackle bushings replaced on the springs. Hopefully, that'll get rid of that vibration. I keep double checking underneath to make sure that none of the bearings, splines, or U joints are getting any slop in them. So it's just we just got to get that pinion angle right. But we'll we'll figure it out. It's 11 degrees right now, so pressure washing stuff, it gets kind of interesting too. Oh yeah, we're a little bit unique in this group here, which is I think great. I think we got a nice little group here. I enjoy it. So, okay, how to get the gold out of the max water resin? High priority. Finding out what we can do with the uh, pure gold resin is a priority. And wow, that looks like a lot of work, Walt. Yeah. We'll do what we can, Walt. See what's going on here. It sounds like fun. I'd like to be that. Like to do that. Uh, yeah. Well, prospectors are not normal people. Otherwise, they wouldn't be prospectors. Yeah, Shaggy. I'm not going to be doing much digging for a while here. I dug a post hole last week. The top 6-8 inches of ground was frozen. Then it got to be pretty easy digging. But give it another couple months. Um, Looking forward to going ice fishing here shortly. I don't know what the weather report is. Let's see here. What are we looking at the next week? Tink tink. Oh, let's see. Tomorrow, high of 13, low of 3. Wednesday, 26, 22. Wow, that's a big spread, a whole 4 degrees. Thursday, 37, 4. Friday, 14 and 8 with snow. Saturday, 26 and 10, sunny. Sunday, 26 and 7. Monday, 13 and 4. So a week from now, it's going to be snowing again. And then Tuesday, snow, and like that. Yeah, we got one day above freezing. So, yeah, the ice is going to be getting thicker and safer. Well, I'm glad you like it, Tonya. As I say, it's a small group. Unlike a lot of live streams that have like a gazillion people commenting all the time. As you notice, we only got about 20 people here at any one time in general. And that means you can actually keep track of the chat, ask questions, get answers, and like that. So it's kind of nice. It's just kind of a bunch of friends hanging out every Monday evening. And Tonya, did you get that message from Chris about he knows a guy over there by him that might be interested in some of your stuff? And Also, the tinfoil hat report sometimes takes a little explaining. My wife, who is very smart and spends a lot of time on the internet, gives us reports on regulations, the markets, general economic stuff, and things like that. You're not, Lars? Wow, that's shocking. Well, I just want to make sure that next week you don't show up just like you did this week. What's that noise? Oh. The neighbor moving some stuff around. It sounded quite peculiar. And I do the sign language interpretation in the back because of a unfortunate evening one time when I was doing that to Jim. Miner Jim's not here tonight. We have a professional placer miner that's usually here. Think Gold Rush, but smarter, and without the drama. And so he was just breaking up. So we decided to let everyone see what I was doing, and people like it. What did you think? Did you enjoy the sign language interpretation? Dip strike and why plaster material would concentrate in a specific type of dip strike scenario. Usually, dip and strike relate to veins or what do you call it? Thank you, Tonya. Or fault lines. Okay. And I use this beautiful sign that somebody sent me. Let us assume this is your vein. Okay. And it can be in any orientation. Now, if you were to take a round object, we could probably even take just a non-round object at this point and put it on the surface here and let it go. It goes down dip. If you're a skier, it's called the line of fall, but that would be dip. On the other hand, the strike is if you draw a horizontal line here, what direction does it go in the horizontal plane? Is it north or northwest or whatever? And dip, by definition, is always going down. So if you had something like this, and say pointing at you was north, this would be dipping. Let me think here. Dipping to the east 45 degrees. That's the dip, east 45 degrees. Whereas the strike would be north-south or just north, 0 degrees or whatever. When it's measured properly, it's usually in degrees, bearing degrees and degrees of vertical angle here. That's dip and strike. And if you had like a fault line or something where you had flowing water over it, then it could form a riffle or whatever. But as I generally dip and strike are more oriented towards veins and fault lines, because it has to be a really identifiable thing, So yeah, as Chris says, it could be, say, a fault line that has plaster up against it. And so say you can have that, but in a placer in general, they're pretty irregular. You might have, for example, a pay streak that travels in a particular, strikes this such at this point. But yeah, I say it's not, those terms are not generally used in placer, but in hard rock. And that's what they mean. Oh, and for those of you who are new here, this is some of the ion exchange resin we're talking about. And let's see if we can make this happen here. No, you can't really see. It's actually kind of a red color because it's loaded with gold. Actually, this stuff is pretty dark.
Oh, yeah.
This is damp resin. Okay. Dried kind of almost charcoal gray little one. But anyhow, this is what ion exchange resin looks like in the form we use it, and it grabs the gold out of solutions. So when you have a solution that has the gold in it, that will really grab the gold. This stuff here is running about 4% gold. Yeah, cutthroat. Yeah, a lot of people ski, so fall line is a good way to do it. And but that's all dip is. If you were to remove the rock from on top of the vein, now you also have something called footwall and hanging wall. And let's say here's your vein. This surface here, once you remove the vein, you have this rock hanging over top of you. That's the hanging wall. And this rock here, once you remove the vein, becomes the footwall because that's where your feet go. You stand on it. So in general, instead of floor and ceiling, when you have a vein, you got a footwall and a hanging wall. If you have a tunnel, you have the back, the ribs to the side, and usually the road is what I call it. It can be, if it runs a railroad track, it'd be the track. But yeah, the bottom has a number of different things. Some people call it the belly, but I haven't heard that used by actual miners in a while. That's kind of a archaic term. So those are terms that often get used. The phrase adit means a tunnel that opens to the outside. A drift is a tunnel on the inside of a mine. A stope is an area where they've mined out a lot of rock that's in a structure that's fairly vertical, 45 degrees or so, or steeper. If it's fairly horizontal, then it's usually called a room. But underground mining is done in 3 dimensions, so it's the same thing. It's just like that. What time is it here now? It is 8:44 p.m. here in Montana.
Computer. It's 8:52 on the phone.
Okay, it's 8:52 on the phone. I don't know how to reset my clock on the computer. I'm sorry. Me and electrons don't get along, Tanya. So yeah, we're here on Monday nights at 6:00, and we like questions. Yours was a good one. We appreciate it. 8:52. Yeah. You're right, Jeff. So say that's about it for what we're doing. I will have to say out loud and publicly to the whole world, I'm very proud of my wife. I think she does a great job in the lab. She's very meticulous, and she's been an enormous help this year because she's done a huge amount of work that has freed me up to do a lot of other much more physical labor. And she's very good at keeping the records and things like that. I tend to get kind of sloppy. You can ask Lauren if you see him. There's a reason that the cone mold has a little label on it. It says, if you're in California, yeah, uh, it says weigh the button. Because that was the thing. I get a a lead button, and I forget to weigh it. And that's important because how much lead you get indicates how how much reduction you're getting in the ore. What is the oxidation potential? Damn right I like her, Forrest. I love her. But I also respect her, and I like her too. And she puts up with me. And that's it. That takes a lot at times. But I even know how to cook. But yeah, I just want to say that she's been a hell of a help this season, and um, she's pretty tough. She's there when I need her, unless she's hurt pretty darn bad. But I'm very, very lucky to have her. So that's the plan for next week. I know Eve is also planning on recovering more silver. For those of you who may not have noticed in some of the other videos, when we dissolve the silver out of the gold beads, she will usually add about 2 grams of silver per sample to make sure there's enough silver in that precious metals bead so that it will dissolve. If there's not enough silver, then the gold kind of blinds off the dissolution. It passivates the whole thing. So she puts in about 2 grams of silver, and we recover that. It's actually fairly easy to recover, and she's planning on doing so. We did some experiments, and on a different method, it went a little bit awry. So she wants to purify the silver she recovered there, and pretty soon we're going to be recovering the silver from the beads that we're parting by simply neutralizing the acid where the solution is neutral, putting copper in it, and silver falls out of solution. It's kind of cool. And it gives us, hey, how's it going, Coulter? Yeah, it's kind of
Hi, Coulter.
Kind of the end of the thing, and depending upon what happens. Let's see. Okay, he's talking to Chris there. Yeah, I'm glad you liked the little idea. This thing, Coulter. I don't know, dude. You interested in the idea of making or dealing with swag and stuff like that for us? Because I'm just not terribly interested in Hard Rock University product line, so to speak. But it's fairly common thing that people do for their YouTube channels.
Oh, sure shit.
And yeah, I told him about the that little device I made years ago that I think works really well, and he's thinking of whipping up his own version of that and selling them. Coulter is he's an inventor and an entrepreneur. And he likes to invent things and then sell them. I like to invent things and then use them. And yeah, I say I'm not like a lot of other YouTube celebrities, so to speak, in terms of I'm not trying to grow the channel that much. I'm just trying to do the best I can at gold mining and information and helping people, I don't know what I would do. I mean, boy, you got someone like, Jason from Flower Gold Wizards. Now, I mean, he started not too long ago. When I first saw him, he wasn't very much at all. And he's got, more subscribers than I have. And I think that's a fantastic thing, by the way. I think he really earns it. He goes out there, he works hard. And he um, he plays the YouTube game, I call it. I don't mean that in a disparaging manner, but he's working to try and get more subscribers and get to where he can like monetize the channel and things. He might have already done it for all I know, probably has, because again, he does it. And so he has played the game very well while doing, I think, a good, classy job of making videos, providing content and stuff like that. And he as I plays a different game than me. He had his first live stream like last week or something. And I thought, oh, fuck, he's got a live stream. Let's see that. Jump on. There's like 150 people, and it's like, I got 22 right now, and it's like, man, he's playing the game. I literally don't want to, because I want to have the time and the ability so that when people like Tonya want some help, or people like Walt want some help or whatever, I've got the time to do that. Okay. And I can't do that if I'm playing the YouTube game and getting lots of really active subscribers and stuff. I answer all the comments. If you make a comment and I don't answer it, is because it hasn't showed up where I can answer it. Okay. And so I say, I'm perfectly happy that other people are doing that. And I say, I like Jason because the dude, he's a nice guy, but he also works his butt off. I know how much it takes to make content, and he's out there panning in ice water and stuff. That's dedication, and I respect that. Seems to have a nice family and everything too, which is great. But I just don't want to do that. I want to mine, and I can't be mining if I'm focusing on the videos. I take you guys along for the ride. I enjoy it. And it also gets me a lot of contacts and stuff, which have come in very handy. Chris has been an amazing help in a number of things. Rock Butcher did some testing for me earlier this year that would have cost me a pile of money if I'd have had it done and paid the normal processes. So I say, I like doing what I'm doing. I especially like doing what I'm doing with the woman that I'm doing it with. And I couldn't do that if I was focusing on the YouTube side. So, thanks everybody. I appreciate it. And Coulter, if you're interested in maybe making and selling the swag and taking half or more of the profits, but handling all the BS, be happy to talk to you about that. Unlike a lot of channels, we also have stuff that comes in very handy. For example, Chris came up with this chart so that when you're fire assaying and you don't have a $20,000 balance to weigh your beads, you can get a really good idea of how much the beads weigh just by using a $60 microscope and this chart. And stuff like that. what I like to do, really do. And yeah, it sounds good to me, mining. One thing I'm gonna try and do next year when I re-register my truck is get a vanity plate, HRD RCK1. That would be kind of cool. But say, like, I've got that one device we came up with. We got, say, things like these things we could resell potentially. We might be able to get them at a real good price and then put a sticker on them and sell them.
Your splitters?
The splitters, yeah. He mentioned that. Yeah, I need to get you the plans for that. I think they're in that closet over there. Yeah, he just said, I also like the splitter you designed. Yeah, it works pretty well. And it's real simple to manufacture. And it's a quarter of the cost of the nearest competitor, so to speak, because nobody else makes a cheap splitter. They're all expensive professional things. So, yeah. And say, if you want to handle the marketing and production stuff, yeah, I'll just take a simple, what do you call it, royalty, so to speak, on the things, and you can handle the rest of it. That also means that if something should happen to me, then Eva's got another income stream that she can deal with. Understood, mining. Well, I can also send stuff to some people. I mean, like Flower Gold Wizards and Prospector Trip and a few others to get some stuff to kick it off. And say, you've done this recently and you've got a much better idea of what the marketing on that kind of stuff would be. But I say, that's something that I've been so damn busy, I just didn't want to get sidetracked. Okay. But if you like doing that kind of stuff, be happy to work out a deal with you. That way, when people say, you got any more of those splitters? It's like, go to Mining Magnets and you'll have them for them. That'll work great. I like that idea. What kind of welder and plasma cutter do you have, Coulter? Because we're also looking at maybe making wear parts for the RC46 crushers. Keen makes a bunch of those, but the damn jaw plates just wear out like you wouldn't believe. Yeah, I presume it's a 220 volt MIG. Will your laser cutter cut 1/4 inch steel? The brake press is just fine for the. Okay. Well, see, then we can maybe make some parts for the RC46 crushers. I just bought some new wear plates, and the movable jaw plates, 2 of them they were like $125 each. Well, Mining Magnets here has some interesting real portable little sluices. And it'd be hard to beat if you're looking for a small backpacker size thing. What size sluice are you looking at, Tonya? I also hope that's the way you pronounce your name. Tonya instead of Tanya. Yeah, you're all set up for what we need. But I mean, I say that wear plate without hard facing would would cost, I mean, it would wear out with that kryptonite, less than 8 hours of operation, and it's gone. So you have, the nice thing about wear facing too is as it wears down, you can visually see when it needs to be redone. Yeah, an RC46 is a bit much. That's about 10 grand right now. They're really nice, but it's not that for pulverizing on a small scale. There's a number of small chain mills and such that for the price are hard to beat. You just break it up with a hammer and feed it in. And Tanya, okay. And that does a pretty good job on modest scales for sampling and stuff like that. I have the RC46, which is about 500 pounds an hour. Okay, Tanya. But it's a bit big for a prospector scale thing. My RC46 and the impact mill I build are kind of small production scale stuff, but they work. Both of them work pretty good. I don't make the RC46. That's Keen. And so I say that's like 10 grand for that baby. Another thing they don't make for the Keen RC46 is replaceable shell rolls. I mean, each one of those rolls on that thing is $500. Okay. And all it is a 6-inch diameter chunk of steel with a couple of, I think they're 1.25 inch shafts out the end. Now you can take and basically you can take the same thing that's right there and say, okay, when you get to a certain point, just take it, put it on a lathe and shave it to this size, and then press a shell onto it. And then you just run it until the shell wears out, pull it out, press another shell on there. And that would make life a lot easier when you wear them out. So again, there's money to be made in wear parts, and say something like that where all you got to do is machine down the rolls. One, actually, you can just wear them down. Just keep using them until they get to a certain size, and then stop before they go any further. And then press the shells on, and couple skip welds on each end to keep them from slipping. Run them till they wear out. Grind off the welds. Press new ones on. You just need to figure out exactly what size pipe. You're going to want some kind of a fairly strong alloy pipe if possible. Mild steel is not going to last nearly as long. But yeah, that would be a good thing to do too. Say wear parts. If you got all the tooling, then yeah, I mean, for little sampling projects, I mean, you're right, mining magnets. A little angle grinder chain mill is a whole lot better than a mortar and pestle. And that is definitely a lot better than a mortar and pestle. It was funny. Eva was trying to use my big Mad Max mortar and pestle to grind some stuff up for what was it? It was either slag or Cupels. Yeah, something like that, Shaggy. And I said, let me just close up the rolls on the RC46 and run it through there. come back in about 10 or 15 minutes, plunk, there you go. She's like, holy crap. Yeah, Tanya, that size angle grinder sort of mill is good for sample size. It's really good for sampling because you don't need a whole lot for that. And the other thing is, if you're really doing serious sampling, you need some way to split the ore. Now you can do what they call cone and quartering, and that will work, but it is a lot of work. On the other hand, by using something called a splitter, you can just pour your half-inch minus in the top, and it just splits it and gives you two representative samples, each one half the size. And you take one of those, do the same thing. Now you got, one sample 1/4 and one that's 3/4. Do it again, and like that. And so it's extraordinarily useful when you've got to do that. Okay, Tanya. So it's hard to do from text. I'm glad I got it right. Yeah, Chris is pretty good at some of those details like that. But yeah, mining. Yeah, Coulter, that would be way cool. That's something we can try and, get together on. And we can I can put out a video and say, what kind of swag or, what kind of stuff do people want? I know the splitter is one that I've sold several of them. The little microscopes are good. That little prospecting field tool I told you about, Coulter, is a good one.
T-shirts and hats.
But yeah, T-shirts, hats, stickers, stuff like that, I'm sure.
Mouse pads.
We'll probably have to have some with tinfoil hat goddess on them too. Might have to take a picture of you with your tinfoil hat, little one, to put it on the sticker. Okay?
No. We're going to use a drawn representation of it.
She wants a drawn representation, huh? Whatever. We can probably put it in Photoshop and it can do that. That will do a certain amount of fracturing. And Tanya, but it doesn't really powder it real well. It can be good if you're trying to break it down into something more like gravel. And then what's left is going to be a bit softer too. Tanya is saying, I was thinking tinfoil hat, coffee cup.
Absolutely. The goddess approves.
And Shaggy says, and everything must say, and.
The goddess approves of
Absolutely.
tinfoil hat memorabilia.
I think and I forgot who first came up with that because my memory sucks. Who, David?
Yes.
Dave? Okay. That is going to be our unofficial, or maybe our official, no, happy prospecting. Keep yourself safe out there is probably going to be our official one. There you go, Tonya. But and is definitely one of the, yeah, it will weaken it, Tanya. I say it, because Tanya, you have no idea just how apropos that is when it comes to money. It's like, well, we got to do this and we got to do that and we got to do that, and it just becomes a series of steps, and so it's always and Dave Villa, according to my wife, that is hardly ever wrong. came up with that, and it has really fit. Pretty much mining. Yeah, Coulter. It's not always, but there's always more than you'd like. How's that? I also had that gravity separator that I came up with for it does a pretty good job of trapping the 500 mesh plus gold.
The trip concentrator.
Yeah, the trip concentrator. Absolutely. That's another one we can sell. Absolutely. And eventually we'll probably be doing stuff like, yeah, you could use them between the two. Yeah, absolutely, Coulter. But
the auto rolls.
Yeah, let's say there's a lot of things. Eventually, we're going to be probably having, um, you know, resins, and fluxes for resins and things like that. I mean, all this stuff, you know, has potential. And I say I'm too damn busy and too old and tired to spend that much time on it.
I have ideas. I have an endless font of ideas.
Yeah, Jeff. I say there's all kinds of ideas out there. The I say that one I worked on, the trip concentrator, it works pretty good on hard rock gold as long as it's not too terribly fine. I mean, it gets really good recovery down to about 500 mesh. Yeah, Tanya, that sounds about right. I do that a lot. I think one of the captions on the video I put up today was a bit of a run-on sentence. Or was it? No, I think it was an answer to a comment. And yeah, I'm looking at that going, wow, that sentence is a whole paragraph. Oh, English was it my least favorite class? Let me think. History, I liked history better than English. Math, yeah, better than English. I think I liked PE better than English, and I'm not an athlete or anything. I think English was my most unpleasant class. The only class I ever got a D in high school. That got me on restriction for until the next um, report card. My mom had a very simple principle when I was in high school. You're either on the honor roll or on restriction. Your choice. So, I say, but I think English was the one that I just really didn't like. Um, well, you got mining tools and a major, I mean, small scale mine. I focus on what you might call micro scale mining. And that's kind of an integral part of the prospecting. Right, when you find something interesting, then you do some sample testing, and then you got to do kind of like some little pilot scale testing, but some small pilot scale testing, and that's the kind of stuff I focus on. And all I'm doing is waiting to find like 20 ounce to the ton, which I've seen it, just haven't been able to mine it myself. But nevertheless, we're having a good time. I'm very, very lucky to have a wife who likes the same kind of stuff and enjoys camping out. By the way, I need to talk to you about camping out later tonight. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so it works out very well. We're both happy up here in Montana. Eva was talking to Walt earlier today, and she's like, Montana rocks, Arizona sucks rocks. But yeah, um, having a good time, but I don't have the energy I used to. So if Coulter, you want to take over some of that stuff and get the majority of the profits, that's fine with me. Got all kinds of stuff, Shaggy, but I need something that's the right size, the right situation, etc. While I'm pretty darn smart for a prospector, I'm not that smart for a mining engineer, especially an experienced one or an extractive metallurgist. I'm kind of in the crack between the amateur prospectors and the real professional mining people. But I like that. I like doing a lot of different things. And say Walt sitting there, hey, if the assays come back, we can get you out there on a helicopter. And I'm thinking like, A+ sweet. I'm for that. We were down by Phoenix, what's it, Wickenburg area. And had a guy wanted me to do some stuff. That's a trip I did with I Break for Bedrock. They weren't asking for me. I was an intermediary there, and the guy rents a quad, a side by side and everything. It's like, yeah, that's and I get paid for it. I'm happy, I hope I stay healthy. But say we're having a good time. Love my wife, love my life, and I really appreciate all the help you guys are and all the fun you guys are. And if anyone's coming from Tucson up to Helena sometime, I got a few things. Could probably just fit in the trunk of a car or whatever. I'd like to pick up a few things and bring them up here. Things like pictures of Eva from years back and stuff like that. Most of the stuff, it may be worth something, but we don't have much room up here anyway. But you can't let your stuff control you. You need to own your stuff. And I say there's a few things, mementos I don't want to lose. We brought the really important stuff for Eva up here. And we left some stuff down there that, again, they're mementos, but nothing critical. And then there's something else that I'm gonna pick up from somebody that I used it as collateral at one time, and I want to recover it, pay off the loan, so to speak, and bring it up here too. But I say that, and don't forget, we're looking for a good home for a couple of cats down in the Tucson area. And Ryan will be, he could drive them, 100, 150 miles from Tucson to a good home. We can arrange the transport, so to speak. But we can't keep cats up here, and we need to find them a good home. And I have a note here. Just make sure she's not on the live stream, Coulter. Got a Russian blue and a big, what is it, tabby? Is that what it is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, Pixel's a big tabby, and we got 4 too many. Yeah, I can understand how that happens. That's why I stopped personally collecting pets years ago. We started collecting cats when some relatives had some that. No, these are full-size cats. I think Pixel's 12, and Adora's about 7 or 8 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
They're both house trained and fixed.
yeah, they're both fixed and house trained. But as I say, it's just one of those deals where um, we wound up either taking them in or, uh, boy, by the time we got Adora, um, she was sick. She was dying. And when we first got her,
That was X's fault.
yeah, I know. But yeah, she was so sick that I was laying on the floor in the spare bedroom with her, trying to get her to drink stuff and keeping an eye on her that night so we could get her in the vet the next morning. And she had an infection, and yeah, she wouldn't have made it very much longer. Maybe 24 hours, 48 at the most.
That's what happens with the pound.
But you just, um, I'm too busy. I'm doing too many things. I'm not the right person for a pet. Although a dog would be easier than a cat, but even a dog, this apartment, they don't take pets. So, I mean, we can always go over to Lauren's and pet Augie, or go over to Jim's and pet Chloe, whatever. Um, but we have a responsibility to try and get those cats a decent home. And the idea of just taking them to the pound and rolling the dice is like, nah, I don't approve of that. Only in an absolute desperation thing, and we're far from that. That's just one of those things. I like to tidy up some loose ends here, but yeah, let's say things are going good up here. Well, I'm just modeling on here, I guess. Does anyone have any questions or anything? I hope you enjoyed your first visit here, Tanya, and not Tanya, not Tonya, Tanya. So, okay. Hope you enjoyed your first night here, and you know where you can come to ask questions, and people will work to try and get you some decent answers. Uh, Anything else tonight? Glad you showed up, Coulter. That was that worked out well, and I think a picture would be fine, but I presume that if Eva wants kind of a semi drawing or something, or not a caricature, but what a representation of her, a fairly accurate representation without it being a photograph, I suppose we can do that.
If somebody can do me anime style, that would be great.
Oh, she likes anime style. You could probably do that, Tanya, huh? Also, since this is your first time here, you probably don't know, her working hard hat is a pink hard hat with the little cat ears and a bow hanging on the lamp strap, you know. Okay, Shaggy. What is anime style? It's a Japanese cartoon
An
style.
idealized cartoon, so I'd look like a 16-year-old girl with big dewy eyes.
Yeah.
Instead of a little old lady.
Yeah, if you just Google anime, I'm sure you'll see some pictures instantly.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
Like Sailor Moon.
Yeah, Tonya thinks that it's possible.
Like Sailor Moon. Only me.
Yep.
I like Sailor Moon.
But yeah. Yeah, I think that would work good. Mining. I just do that. Coulter. Big oversized eyes. Just Google anime and you'll see. You'd need to screenshot her. If you can just get a screenshot off of the what do you call it? The live stream, that would be fine. If you need a picture, on all my videos, you'll see uh, my email address, and you can email me a letter. Just email me, and we could take a picture and send it back as an attachment. Um, and say if the screenshot doesn't give you what you're looking for, then let us know exactly what you'd look for, and we'll see what we can do. It might be, for example, a lot easier to do with a fairly blank background or something like that. But yeah, that sounds cool, Tanya. Um, that would be great. Um, I love her very much, but I understand she's a little bit bashful at times, believe it or not.
No, actually, it's because I look really, really old.
She says because she looks really, really
And
old.
I don't have teeth.
Yeah, when some of her teeth are missing, yes, due to stuff that happened a long time ago. But I don't notice for some reason. So, yeah, whatever you need, Tanya. Uh, to say if you can get what you need off of the internet and then just send it back to me on the email, fine. If not, send me an email. Tell us exactly what kind of picture you want, how close up and stuff like that, and we'll try and get you exactly what you need. Sounds like fun. That's what live stream's all about. Just have some fun. Oh, and another thing, Tanya, um, if you betcha, Coulter, if you ever hear some testicle jokes here, that's because I had an unfortunate surgical accident last spring, and so I'm as my lovely
He's
wife.
half the man he used to be.
There you go. Anyhow, so we don't get upset at testicle jokes. We just grade them. We score them. I don't think we had a testicle joke in the whole night, did we?
No.
Last week we had a couple good ones. Yep.
Tonight you escaped.
Okay. Anything else, anybody? If not, I think I'll call it a night. Okay. Rob Bob got at least one in there. It's a pretty, low scoring one. That's nuts. Yep. I say that's.
Well, he's just getting testy because he hasn't had any better ones.
Yeah, that's an old one. That's Chris's.
I know. I resurrected Chris's old one.
As long as they're meant in fun is the key. I mean, as I say, and I like a good joke. Not that great, Shaggy. Nice try, short notice. Exactly. If on Thursday you think of something, write it down so you can get it in next time. Thank you, Tanya. Yeah, it's guys. We have I don't know what you'd call it, almost ritual called ball busting, whereas especially in industries like construction, the military, mining, stuff like that.
Okay, I have a question.
Okay, what, little one?
Does that mean now it's twice as hard to ball bust you because you only have one testicle?
It's hard to hit. Yeah, it's harder to hit. But anyhow, so
that's all I care.
Again, the whole idea is to come up with something that's appropriate to the situation and the person and has some intellectual zing to it in some way, Yeah, exactly, Tonya. That Chris came up with that one. And so we have fun. Absolutely. So anyhow, I don't see anything new here. Glad to see you, Tonya. And hopefully you'll be back in the near future here on another live stream. And we'll, try and say if you can't screenshot it properly, just let me know and I will. There you go, Tonya. Tanya, that's right. Can your brother take the kitties? No, I don't think so, Argonaut. He's already got a couple cats. I don't think he needs a couple more. He's in Yuma, which is 250 miles away. But yeah, it wouldn't hurt to ask him. He might know somebody.
Yeah, as long as they weren't outside. So they can't be outside.
And Randy, thank you very much. So even if he doesn't want them, he might know somebody that does.
Well, Ryan said he'd be willing to drive a couple of, like a half a day to get them to somebody who wanted them. I mean, Ryan could meet somebody halfway.
Well, I say Randy's house is 4-hour drive one way, but Randy's quite often in Phoenix because his daughter lives in Phoenix, and so that's only about 90 minutes from Tucson, so that'd be pretty easy.
Yeah.
Thank you, Argonaut. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Tanya. It's nice meeting you too. And long O ? I'm not sure what that means, Tanya. Oh, Tonya? Like, Tanya. Okay. Tanya.
No, that way, if you spelled it phonetically, Tanya would be Tawnya.
Okay. Tawnya.
Tanya.
Is that how I'm supposed to do it? Tanya? Tawnya? Is that the proper pronunciation? Like, it sounds like it. It's so tough to do with text.
Tonya.
Yeah. That's how it's spelled, Tonia, but then, you pronounce your name however you want. Legally, you can. You can have a name like Styx Hexenhammer and say I pronounce it Jones. And legally, it counts. Okay, yes, Tawnya, Tanya. Okay. All righty, Tanya. Okay, well, we're going to call it a night here, I guess. Had a good time. You really helped out, Tanya, with your question. It got things rolling. And we appreciate that. And thank you, Argonaut, for the suggestion. Appreciate it.
Good night, everybody.
Tanya. Yeah, forget the W part. Tanya. Okay. Got it. I will probably forget it by next week.
I'll remember.
I'm 65 years old.
You're 66 years old.
66 years old, and I've had a stroke years ago. So I always blame the right parietal lesion for everything, because if you got an excuse, use it.
No lie. Last week, the dude was sitting around in long underwear, and he puts on his boots, and he's getting ready to head out the door without pants on.
I realized it. I don't normally wear long underwear. I mean, my whole life I lived in southern Arizona. So I got something on my legs. Well. All righty. Well, you guys take care. Thank you for everything, everybody. And see you all next week.
Good night, everybody.
Happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.
Good show tonight, Bear.